Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to another episode of the Irish Breakdown Podcast, brought to you by our friends over at FanDuel. Happy Wednesday. Brian, we are so close.
Yes, we are so close, Trev. Notre Dame kicks off fall camp tomorrow. Irish Breakdown will be there. Trevor will be there. I'll be there. We will do a show afterwards. We'll probably get started at 1, but you guys know how it is. We obviously get practice reports and stuff done. There's a chance we may go at 2, but our plan is to rock and roll and get everything done. So we can be kicking off our post-practice report at 1 o'clock on the dot Eastern time tomorrow. But before we begin on today's show, which is a full preview, team, offense, defense, did want to tell you guys a little bit about what's going on at Irish Breakdown. And number one, I've put up a lot of different pre-camp intel pieces at Irish Breakdown. So quarterback, running back, O-line, receiver, D-line. Today I put out the DBs. Tonight I'll put out the linebackers. A lot of really interesting stuff in the DB intel piece that I just put out, Trev. I was a little surprised by some of the intel that I got back from people about the secondary and the present and the future of the secondary. So that was very fascinating, very, very fascinating to listen to. So you'll definitely want to check that out. And that's for premium members only. I'm telling you guys, this stuff is worth it. I spend weeks scouring just like all my sources, talking to all my sources, getting as much intel as I can. Trev, you know who I've been talking to and where this stuff came from. So I feel pretty good about it. We put some good and some, areas where some work is needed, or not so much work is needed, but like, hey, look, this is where this guy is based on, pre-fall camp. Let's see what he does in fall camp. And of course, another perk this year for, if you're a member of Irish Breakdown, is the Notre Dame Football Preview magazine. It is a digital edition this year, and I just wanted to kind of go over this. This is something that we're doing, that anyone that signs up for a membership at Irish Breakdown gets access to. This is not something you buy separately, and it's something I've been wanting to do for years. And it was a labor of love, Trev. It took a long time. It got out a lot later than we wanted to, but it'll be a lot better next year because we've now got the foundation laid. But look, I'm just going to give you guys a little bit of a preview of that. I'm telling you, if you are not on the message board and you've wondered whether you should or shouldn't join the message board, or you didn't, whatever reason you aren't on the message board, I'm telling you all, this is definitely going to be worth joining. So that's a look at our cover page. What is Trevor? I think it's 104 pages. I think
yes,
is what
sir.
It was. 104 pages of just, and there's 2 ads. One ad is for the Irish Breakdown podcast, and the other ad is for Believe podcast, and it's not even an ad. They didn't pay to put it in there. I was not going to charge them for that. It's just, hey, look, you're an NFL fan. You love our podcast. Definitely check out the other things that Believe has to offer on different platforms and covering your NFL team. So we put that in there. Everything else is, man, it's just our content. It's amazing. And so, like, here's just some examples. We have some feature stories at the very beginning. First, we have the roster, the depth chart. By the way, we are able to update this magazine to a degree. We're not going to change things if guys get hurt, but we are going to update the roster when the new roster comes out. And so that'll be updated. So you'll be able to it'll reflect, because Notre Dame hasn't released their season roster yet. We'll have that out. Then we have some feature stories. We have things like, star power, who we think the star players are going to be for Notre Dame. We have, this is a different feature where I talk about, guys who are kind of getting their last chance to shine, what their stepping up could mean for Notre Dame, guys that need to kind of finally live up to their potential and the impact that could have. We have a Q&A with Mike Denbrock, 3 pages of Q&A with Mike Denbrock and 3 pages of a Q&A with Chris Ash. They both took time to meet with us. I give Notre Dame's media team a lot of flack for things, but look, they hooked it up. They worked with me to have 15 minutes with both coaches, and both went over, and they were cool with it, and we had some great questions and great answers to the questions. I would say great questions, but the answers to the questions were great. Getting to sit down with both of them. So there you've got that. And then Trevor wrote a 2-page sort of kind of big picture preview of each position group. Then I have what we have as a position analysis, which kind of takes a deeper dive. So, for example, here is just half of the quarterback article. of, this is why we think CJ Carr is good. But then this is also some areas where CJ has to get better. You'll see here some data here that I put in just types of routes that, CJ Carr's completion percentage was on post routes, corner routes, and seam routes, where he was very good compared to go routes and slot fade. So people say, well, he's got to improve the deep ball. Well, what deep ball are we talking about here? And so I break it down to where if he can get better here, what this means, big game production. So we do this with every position. And again, I think we felt when we were doing this, like we got to have it. It's got to be different. It just can't be, news and quotes and what other people are saying. We got to have analysis. And there's a lot of analysis here. Thank you. And so that's an example. Then we have 2 pages of, thank you. We have 2 pages of like different types of position previews. We talk about breakout, biggest question at each position, bold prediction, X factor, sort of an expectations. And then the next page is grades. It's what they're saying. So Trev went and found quotes that either coaches are saying or outside people are saying about it. And then we kind of have a recruiting overview of each position. So we do this for every position group that we have, including special teams. We at least did this part for special teams. Then Trevor has some cool stuff about the opponents. So we have a 12, we go through all 12 opponents here. And then he has a really interesting story where he looks at the biggest concern, or the biggest, sometimes it's a concern. It could be something like, are you going to be focused in this game? Sometimes it's a matchup that's a concern, but like the biggest concern for all 12 opponents from a Notre Dame standpoint, how are you going to handle Miami's big time receivers? Last year, Miami's receivers got the best of the Notre Dame DBs, and this receiving core is going to be better than last year's receiver at Miami. So we talk about that. You need to talk about, what the BYU and different things. And then we have our all opponent team that we did, 2 pages of that. And then I wrap up with a tribute to Coach Holtz. And my buddy Oscar McBride gave me some really awesome quotes in there about what Coach Holtz meant to him. Obviously we lost a legend. And that's how the magazine wrapped up. I thought there was no better way to end so it's on page 102. So it's 102 pages. No better way to end it than to have something about Coach Holtz. So I just wanted to go over that a little bit, just show you guys a glimpse of it. That's what you get if you're an IB member. And we're working on maybe having something college football, big picture college football that we're going to try to get out before week 0. We'll see about that. But this first year, I think down the road, we might make it available for people to buy. But this year, we're making it tied into the membership, and it's a lot cheaper than if I were to sell it. So you just buy a monthly membership or an annual membership. That's what you do. And then some people have said, hey, we want to help support you, and we're already members, and we feel that's fine. We have 2 different things you can do. We have a community fund donation you can make, which you can find at the IB store. Or if you're not a Booster Club member, you can always jump up and become a Shamrock member, Blue Club, or Gold Club. And of course, when you get those, so you get one of these, right? So it's got my coffee mug here, and it says IB Club on it. I don't have one of those because I'm not an IB Club member. It literally only goes to people that are in the IB Club. I don't have one. Trev doesn't have one. We don't have Gold Club T-shirts. Those only go to those members. So that's what we have. And yes, it is digital only. It's not something that's printed. It's not something that you can print off. It can only be found on the page. So those are things that we did. Again, I think we'll sell it in the future. It won't just be tied to a membership, but this was our way of saying, hey, this is a labor of love. We're excited about it. But we wanted it to be for Irish Breakdown members only. The people that have joined a membership, have paid for a membership, that are part of the membership club, like you guys are going to get this. Because, part of it behind it is, Trevor, is like, I've always been we don't do specials. Well, if you sign up now, you get 50%. Well, you're saying, okay, so you're punishing all the thousands of members that have already signed up without a special. Like, we're going to give this perk to somebody who I got to entice you to come join the board, right? I mean, so this is kind of an enticement but it's something that all of our members get. And, that's just something that was important to me. We'll probably sell it in the future, but, this is sort of a thank you to our Irish Breakdown people that are able to and willing to, because not everybody's able to join the membership. Right? Some people are living by a real tight budget. I'm there. Trev, you're there. I mean, you're going to have a kid. So we understand, but at the same time, we're going to do some things for the people that are able and willing to be members of the premium board, which is the absolute best way that you can support Irish Breakdown. But it was so much fun to do, Trev. Stressful, time consuming, but a ton of fun, and turned out, in my opinion, better than I thought it was going to turn out. It really did.
Yeah, it gives you a big sense of accomplishment and gratitude. And I was a big fan of it being able to be a piece that we were able to do to give back to the IB community. I mean, I've been a part of it now for on this side for 2 years, and it's been fantastic. It was a lot of fun, definitely a lot of work, but I think that's what makes it a little bit better in the end. It makes you feel a little bit more accomplished. If this was just something that we threw together in a week and put it out, I don't know if we would have felt as good about it. You know what I mean?
Yeah. I remember when I'm like, well, we'll get it out middle of June. We started working on it, end of June, early July is when I started laying it out. It's like, look, it'll take me, I'll have this laid out by remember I laid out the first couple of pages, and it's like, Trev, I'll have this done probably by the end of the weekend. That's the dumbest thing I ever said.
Well, on Sunday, you called me and you're like, hey, so probably won't be by the end of the week. It's like, dude, but it looks great, man. No, it's fantastic. To Brian's point, so much good stuff going on over at Irish Breakdown, man.
And it was me and Trev did all the writing. Vince proofed and edited everything on there. My wife's business, so my wife runs a company called Journey Websites. They build websites for people. They have done stuff like this in the past, but my wife and her team worked on this. So like I laid it out, and then they made it better. You know what I mean? We came up, this is kind of what I like the schedule to look like. I gave them what my vision was, and then they just made it so much better. So it was really, truly a team effort. Had some friends on, John A1, DMND13, Cham Gel, D-Troll Hunter are people that I sent little snippets to and said, hey, give me some feedback. What do you think? And so gave them I want to thank them as well for doing that. And man, it was really exciting. So we won't keep doing this for every show, but I really felt it was important to kind of show you guys like, hey, this is what it is. Like, this is pretty awesome. And if I do say so myself, and it's the perfect time. It's the perfect time to join the Irish Breakdown, Champions Lounge, because you're going to get access to this, plus all the intel that we've worked our tails off to get. That, I don't know what else is out there. I just keep being told that, hey, there's nothing else out there like that. I don't know. I know it's a beat of a lot of people that work hard, but I do think it's unique, and it's something that I think you guys will enjoy. So you definitely want to do that. So yeah, it was good stuff. But now, Trev, without further ado, it's time to preview fall camp, my friend.
It is. And you talked about all the things going on over at boars@irishbreakdown.com and the Champions Lounge. And with fall camp coming right around the corner, you mentioned all the intel pieces. Now we finally get to have a chance to go see it in person. And this is my favorite part of the season outside of the actual season, because now it's the culmination of everything. The journey to Notre Dame winning a championship in 2026. I know it starts the day after the final game of the regular season. I get all that. But practically speaking, it now starts. Spring was cool. You get to see all the development. You get to see the new faces, who changes their number, the early enrollees. Now this is the final window of practice before game week rolls around. And that's what gets you really excited. And this is going to be a piece of
we even got our updated Notre Dame record book yesterday.
Boom.
So yeah, it's that time, brother. It's time.
It is. And look, if Notre Dame is going to compete and win win a national championship, like they're one of the favorites to do right now on FanDuel, that journey starts right now. And this is when all the pieces start coming together. And I'm excited that we can be there along for the ride.
Yes, it is. Look, we don't know how the season's going to turn out. I will say this, Trevor. I had my buddy Charlie texted me, and he was like, I can't have been this excited since 2006. I mean, haven't had this much hype and excitement about since 2006, when Notre Dame was a preseason top 3 team and they're a title contender, coming off the 2005 season. And obviously that season didn't turn out great. But as we look at it, this is different. This is a different roster. It's a different type of team. There's just a lot of circumstances that have you believing that this team is in a better position to live up to expectations. And look, you're seeing all the national media people jump on the bandwagon, right? Brad Crawford, who spent the entire offseason talking about how Notre Dame's schedule soft, has Notre Dame winning a championship, right? Andy Staples has Notre Dame making it to the championship, losing to Georgia. I'll tell you this right now. I am very confident that if Notre Dame plays Georgia in a championship game, that will not be an L. but I guess we'll have to see, right? But Josh Pate has Notre Dame winning it all. Again, I think a lot of this is just people jumping on the bandwagon and saying and doing things that are going to get all of you Notre Dame fans to just jump on board and give them click, 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 because they're going to ride it. They're going to ride this Notre Dame wave, and all these Notre Dame fans just desperate for somebody outside of the Notre Dame universe to show love to Notre Dame, and we're going to click, 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 click on that stuff. But at the same time, it is creating a lot of great buzz for the program. It is making Notre Dame, along with, I would argue, Texas and Oregon and Ohio State, as like the 4 hot teams in college football right now. So I can be annoyed that I know what y'all are trying to do. And then, because here's where all these people picking Notre Dame to win it all, if they fall short, we'll blast Notre Dame for falling short. All right, that's the setup that you guys have to understand. And if they win it all, then they can be like, see, we knew that this was the year and all that. But here's the reality of it. I can be annoyed by that and still say, but this is great for the program. The hype that's surrounding the program is great for Notre Dame because, fans are excited. They're buying more gear. They're willing to pay $1,000 for Miami tickets. Boosters are giving money to support the program and support Coach Freeman. And guess who else is seeing all of this hype? Recruits. There's a top 10 national player, wide receiver in the 2028 class named Jalen Adai. Name sound familiar? It's the son of Joseph Adai. Southern kid. All the Southern schools love him. I think he's ranked as a top 10 national player. He's loving Notre Dame right now. You think 2 years ago a top 10 national recruit wide receiver is going to be loving Notre Dame? I don't think so. So in a lot of ways, it's good for the program. But here's the key now, Trip. Now you got to back it up on the field. Now there's all this hype. You're not sneaking up on anybody. You've got this revenge tour thing, but guess what? Because of where you're ranked in the preseason, and you guys did a breakdown of the top 20 coaches poll, top 25. I have a feeling Notre Dame might be a spot or two, maybe higher in the AP poll. But we said before, Trev, would I vote Notre Dame 5? No. But if they're in the top 5, it is what it is. I'm not stressing about it. I'm not like, oh, these idiot coaches have Notre. I think they were third, in most first place votes, I think. So like third or fourth, but like they got 5 or 6 first place votes. So it's not disrespectful to have a team that didn't make the playoffs 5th. Like, I'm good with it. I would have them higher, but I'm 5 is understandable. And so, but you got to live up to it because now you're the team that's getting all the hype. You've got to go out there and match that with how you play. And you match that with how you play based on how you prepare for the season. Begins in January. A lot of us look at like fall camp is when it starts. No, it started in January. And that's why I asked Coach Freeman yesterday. I was like, you're in month 8 of building this team. This is the home stretch as you get ready for games. This is where you're putting the finishing touches on who you're going to be as a football team. And I thought his comments yesterday in the kickoff and then in response to the question that I asked him tells us a lot about like why there's a lot of excitement about this football team.
Yeah, absolutely. And I loved a lot of the things that Freeman talked about yesterday between handling the expectations, going through and talking about what they're doing internally to make sure that they live up to those expectations and handle them properly. That was a big question that I had about this program is, hey, how are you going to be able to handle these lofty expectations? We've already had 1 year of a sample size of you guys being the proverbial hunted team in college football, and that's a big task. They did not live up to it last year. Did they learn the lessons necessary? Sounds like they're putting in all the work. And you asked some really good questions yesterday just about the DNA of the program and what they're doing and what he knows about this team now. It was all insightful. I'm with you completely.
One thing that he said, Trev, that I thought was very interesting about the season, and he said this without being prompted. This is something that he talked about kind of building into this. Because again, Trev, like this is the final stretch. You can't have a terrible January to July and then all of a sudden figure it out in August. It all builds to it. But he made a comment that I thought was very interesting as we kind of look at the big picture thing. We'll talk big picture, then we'll talk offense and we'll talk defense and a little bit of special teams. But he said this is exactly how he started the press conference. He goes, I've been really pleased with the summer. Physically, they obviously look ready to go, but the testing numbers have shown they've had a really good summer. Bigger, stronger, more explosive as you look at the numbers the previous years. A credit to our sports performance staff and job they've done since the winter. By the way, that backs up everything that's been in all the different intel pieces. We've heard this time and time again. This guy's had, more explosive. This guy's faster, all this other kind of stuff. But this is what he said, which is like, okay, why? Is like, did Lauren Orlando finally figure out the secret sauce on how to build champions? No, he's been doing what he's been doing, but this is what Coach followed up with. We've had a longer runway, a longer offseason. I know that had something to do with it, but I think the intentionality of our players, our staff, has really contributed to the guys being ready. We've had 2 OTAs the last 2 days, and they're ready for the demands of camp. So I'm looking forward to the 2 days from now when we kick it off with our first practice on Thursday. These are exciting times for all of us. We're all excited to actually get out there and get going. But that's where, again, we talk about the playoff snub, being something that has given Notre Dame emotional preparation, emotional fuel. But we also got to remember that while a year prior, in December and January, Notre Dame was at the end of a grueling 16-game season. This December and January, they were recovering. They were resting. They were healing. All those type of things. And then when this offseason kicks off, they're fresh. So when school semester started last year, they were in the middle of a playoff hunt. You know what I mean? Then there's a short break of rest and recovery, and then you've got an expedited offseason. Now you've got this longer thing, which for us as fans has been kind of grueling because you're like, oh, are we going to play football yet? You're like, bro, it's not even 2026 yet. We're still in December. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
We're not there yet, buddy.
Oh.
But it in a lot of ways, it could pay off. And that's something that I've heard. A lot more time for rest and recovery for guys that needed it. And then also a lot more time to get bigger, faster, stronger. And when you have a team that has so many young players, I think that's huge. Because not only is the freshman class going into year 2, but Trev, over, was it 26, 25 of the 30 signees were all on campus in January.
Yep, all early enrollees, man.
Because it was, who was not? It was Teddy Gerard was not, Micah Drescher was not, Ben Nichols was not, Ian Premer was not, and Gregory Patrick was not. So the other 25 were all on campus. So that factors in as well. And the biggest freak in the class might be one of the kids that didn't show up, and he's just turning heads. I mean, we had some really interesting intel on the board about him. So, those are things where you look at what Coach said yesterday, and you're like, these are some of the ways that you look at it and say, hey, this is how the quote unquote snub has impacted the team positively, like not just emotionally giving them fuel, but practically there's some benefits as well.
Yeah, absolutely. They put themselves in a position to be more prepared going into this stage of the offseason. And it is a very crucial stage of the offseason. This is the culmination of the work that you put into in winter workouts, and then in spring, and then summer OTAs. They had OTAs in June where the coaches could be a part of it. And from the sounds of it, it sounds like they had OTAs in July where the coaches couldn't be a part of it. And Brian, that kind of brings us to the first thing that we're looking forward to seeing in fall camp is, what is the leadership level like of this team? When Adon and Drake yesterday spoke at the press conference, they mentioned about how, hey, in July OTAs, we saw a lot of player-led leadership take control of this team and take charge. And that's great signs. Now, I firmly believe it when they say it. It'll be another piece when we actually get to be there in person and see it, going through warm-ups, going through drills, going through 7-on-7, team period, all those things. But that's going to be a big thing that we're going to be looking for this year, is what is the leadership level of the team like? That's going to be huge.
It's one thing for a coach to say it. I've never heard a coach say in preseason, we don't have great leadership right now. But you know what made me feel good about, yeah, they have it? Not just talking to the sources I've talked to, just watching Adon and Drake and listening to them talk. And I texted one of the dads, actually texted both of their dads, and I was like, are they freaking seniors right now? Like, it's crazy. It's like, it just seems like yesterday that Ryan and I are on shows talking about, man, these guys are eventually going to, I can't wait to see what Drake can do. And I said to one Drake and Adon becoming team captains is one of the least surprising things ever from a recruiting projection. Ever.
Mm.
Like anyone that knew those kids at all and knew the families they came from and the character they had and the work ethic they had would have been like, if he pans out as a player, he will be a captain.
Yeah.
You know, like now sometimes a guy's got great leadership, but he's third string and you're not going to make a third stringer a captain. You know, like you have to kind of have that a little bit. But, you know, that was not at all surprising, Trev.
No, not in the slightest. I mean, when you go through and you look at the traits that they bring to the table and how they speak, I mean, I listen to and transcribe a lot of different interviews for Notre Dame, like whether it's coordinators, players, coaches. And one of the things that I have grown to appreciate is when we get to listen to some of the more veteran players on the team, because it's their answers, their responses are different. They've done this before. They've been around the block a little bit. And that's one of the things that I absolutely loved hearing about Drake and Adon yesterday. Is their evolution as people in front of the mics was very different, very clear cut. I mean, even from last year to this year, you tell it was their first year in a leadership role, first year in the captain's chair, the proverbial captain's chair. And I thought they did a great job yesterday, man. But the leadership is going to be needed. It's going to be needed throughout. I mean, I think back to, you know, the Here Comes the Irish series when Ben Morrison took it upon himself unwarranted and said, hey, coach, there's players. This was prior to the Indiana playoff game. Hey, coach, there's players already talking about the Georgia matchup and playing Georgia in the Sugar Bowl. We got to make sure that we do everything that we can to stay focused. That's why player-led leadership is so important because Marcus Freeman's only one person.
Well, and he talked about that with like CJ, how he would get the receivers together. He coordinated a bunch of guys going down to Florida with him. You know, you hear about things that, you know, Drake and Kingston and Madden are going out to California to work out. Like, look, this is something that's been interesting too. Like Sean Davis and I have talked about this with Malik, and this is something that I was told back then by some of the coaches that didn't necessarily agree with the way the program was being run, to be honest with you, that they were going to win in spite of the coaching. That's how the players felt. Dead serious. I was told this by players back in 2015. It doesn't matter. You know, we don't care who our D coordinator is because we're going to go out there and ball out because we're doing this, we're doing that. And they had leaders that led the team. They had Jalen Smiths and Sheldon Days and, you know, and Isaac Rochelle's and guys like that, you know, the Will Fullers, Ronnie Stanley's, Quentin, you know, not Quentin Nelson, Nick Martin at the time was a big leader on that team as a veteran. So you had those, and of course, Malik was the leader of that team in that offseason. And it was kind of like, hey, guys, it doesn't matter what the coaches do. It doesn't matter what anybody else does. We're going to hold ourselves accountable. And this is the most of that I've heard in an offseason really since that 2015 team. And so it's one of those things where everything sounds good. You know, we're hearing all the right things, all the right cues. I'm not hearing as many buts. Man, this guy's doing this, and this, but this guy's doing this and this, but it's man, this guy's doing this. Boom. It is what it is. Now they just need to go put it all together and get through fall camp. And if they do that, then obviously the sky's the limit. Because look, I don't want to sit there and act like, hey, everyone is only jumping on the Notre Dame bandwagon because for clicks. I think that's an element to it. But I also think there's a lot of people that think this team is really talented. And this team is really good. You know, I've gotten to know George Reister a little bit. You know, former Oregon player, went on his show. He's not putting Notre Dame number 2 in the country because he wants to get Notre Dame clicks. We've had conversations about it. He thinks Notre Dame is really, really good. You know, and so you talk to a lot of people like that. David Pollack, he's never struck me as someone who's doing a topic to get clicks. He's giving you his honest opinion. He's giving you real analysis. And he's very high on this team. Greg McElroy is very high on this team. Like you talk to a lot of people that you're saying, well, I don't think that guy's necessarily doing it for clicks. I think he's someone who values, I'm going to give you my honest opinion. And you're seeing it. And even someone who's doing it for clicks may still also believe what he's saying.
Sure.
You know what I mean? Like, you know, so when I mean like doing it for clicks, you may think Notre Dame's a semifinal team, not a title team, but you're going to pick them to win the title because A, it's going to get all the Notre Dame fans to click on it, and B, it's going to piss off everybody else.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So it's like, which generates clicks. But you're not going to say, I don't think they're a playoff team, but I'm going to pick them to win it all. You know what I mean? So like that's where it is. Like there's a lot of buzz about this team. People see it, guys. People are starting to see it. And it goes back to 2024 when people watch Notre Dame on the same field as Georgia and on the same field as Indiana and on the same field as Penn State. And they're like, dude, these guys are athletic. These guys can play. They got the number one cornerback in the country coming back. I mean, Pro Football Focus, which has never been like this pro Notre Dame hype machine, has Notre Dame is having two of the best defensive players in the country at their positions, and one of them doesn't even start. You know, I saw something the other day. Dane Brugler released his top offensive line. By the way, I wanted to send that to you, Trev. He released his top offensive lineman in the country. He's got Anthony Knapp as the number 3 interior lineman going into looking at it from a draft standpoint. Never even played a down at guard. And he said exactly what we've said. Hey, this kid was good at tackle, but he wasn't a tackler. He wasn't good in space. He wasn't great in space. But you move him inside, boy, whoo, he's had a chance to be really good. So people are starting to see it. He was one of the few people I've seen talk about Gerby Lambert. He's got Gerby a little lower than I think because I'm starting to understand why I think people aren't as hyped about Gerby as Anthony Knapp. And I think a big part of it is because moving from tackle to guard is perception-wise a little bit different than moving from guard to tackle, and translating the skill set from tackle to guard is easier than guard to tackle. Because you say, well, this guy isn't good in space. You move him inside, he's going to be a good guard. But it's a little harder to say a guy that's never been in space and then now he's out in space, how is he going to project? I think that's part of it too. But, I mean, Trev, you saw the intel piece on the O-line. The Notre Dame staff is expecting Gerby Lambert to be an absolute dude this year. But I think people are finally starting to realize, hey, this team is really talented. And they can compete with a lot of people, and they're deep. And that's something that's very fast. Like, it still blows my mind that none of the linebackers transferred this offseason.
Yeah.
Not one. Five dudes in the rotation last year. Not one of them transferred. In this era, what does that say about the character of this football team, of these players? Not one offensive lineman jumped in the portal. Not one. You're like, this is a group of kids that are looking to compete. Now, will that be the case every year? Probably not. But I think it says a lot about where this football team is and what they're trying to accomplish.
Yeah, I've started to notice this when we go through and we do our top 10 position group rankings, because when we're a Notre Dame show, we sit there and we evaluate the team on a day-to-day basis, on a daily basis. And there's just kind of a certain level of inevitability with this team, because there's just undeniable parts of it. It's like, no, they are just that good. You know, we were going through and making the D-line, linebacker, secondary, quarterback, wide receiver, all these different position group rankings. And it's like, yeah, I get we're a Notre Dame show, and if people don't understand what we do, because we have new listeners all the time, they'll tune in and be like, of course, the Notre Dame show has Notre Dame ranked in the top 10 somewhere. But then I think the thing that makes that the most difficult is you're starting to see these other national outlet people get an idea of what this Notre Dame program is actually about. And I think that that's exceptionally special. You can sit there in the preseason and talk about, you know, how bad their schedule is, and they're going to make the playoffs because of this, or they're going to make the playoffs because of that. But then when you sit down, and if you're truly breaking it down on paper, when you start looking at the matchups, there's a certain confidence level, I guess you could say, that Notre Dame has the ability to go on a run. And I think that's why we're seeing some people like the Brad Crawfords of the world talk about, yeah, man, their schedule's not great. But when I'm looking at this matchup on paper, when you have Leonard Moore and Adon Schuler and Briante Johnson and Christian Gray and Boubacar Traore, Drake Bowen and Kingston Viliamasi, yeah, they match up pretty well with this team. And I think that's something exciting to see the rest of college football start to acknowledge, Brian, because this is something we've been talking about since January.
Yes. Well, and this has been true for a couple years now, Trev. This team isn't suddenly better than anybody else.
Right.
You know, like they didn't. Yes, they've gotten better the last couple of years. I think that they've continued to get better. But I also think part of this is this team is a little bit being recognized for what it was. I think people saw what this team did last year. Played poorly and still had the ball at the end of the game with a chance to beat Miami. Played poorly and still took a late lead over Texas A&M. A game that anybody being honest, if any Texas Tech coach or players being honest, they know Notre Dame was on the verge of blowing them out until they made like some stupid mistakes. The missed tackle at the 50-yard line, CJ throwing the pick that allowed them to kind of get back. Notre Dame shot themselves in the foot. And then they just watched them steamroll people. Like they didn't even play well against USC in several areas, defensively, offensively, and still won by 10. And if it's not for a terrible pick by CJ, a missed field goal, didn't they have a missed extra point as well? And still won by 10 over a team that now everybody's hyping up as a borderline top 10 team. I think people are starting to recognize the talent is there. Now we have to find out, does this team have the DNA to be a champion? Does this team have the culture to be a champion? Does this team have the discipline to be a champion, the focus to be a champion, the depth to be a champion? There's no doubt they have a roster that's capable of winning a championship. But as we've said a million times, it's not just about your talent. Talent will get you to, like, I had a friend ask me, he goes, what's going to keep this team from being undefeated? And I said, nothing out external. I said, the big question mark is not really if this team can go 11-1 or 12-0. It's more so about what can they do when they get on that stage against teams that have proven they know what it takes to win it all. And that's that final piece. And that's where that player leadership comes into play. Because at the end of the day, guys, I learned this as a coach. I've learned this doing this job for 15 years. You can say all you want to players, and there's just times it goes in one ear and out the other. It's not until they in the locker room buy into what you're saying and then preach it to each other and then hold each other accountable that a team truly takes that next step. So one of the things I was able to do, Bill Bender asked me to be a voter on the Sporting News is releasing a top all-time teams. And so he's instead of just doing it his own, Bill likes to get other people's opinions on things. So they're doing it like a poll. A bunch of different people vote on it. He asked me to do it. And I'm going through and I'm putting like my top teams. I'm saying all these different teams. And one of the teams I looked at, I ended up not putting them in my top 20 all time, but I think I had 3 Notre Dame teams in my top 20, 88, 66, and 4. 88, 66, 47, and 49. I think I had those 4 in my top 20. But I was looking at the Florida 08 championship team. And you look at that loss to Ole Miss, or that loss to Ole Miss early in the year. And Florida just wasn't playing like they were capable of. They're kind of sleepwalking through the year. And, they were that team that just kind of everybody thought they were going to be good. And they thought they were going to be good. And they came out and just kind of didn't play great against Miami, didn't play great against Tennessee, and they got beat by Ole Miss. And then Tim Tebow says, I promise you, we will basically was like, we will not lose another game. And basically just like the leadership said, we're not going to do it. And here's what they did the rest of the way. Beat number 3 LSU 51-21. Beat Kentucky 63-5. Beat number 8 Georgia 49-10. Beat number 24 South Carolina 56-6. Beat number 23 Florida State 45-15, beat number 1 Alabama 31-20, and held arguably the greatest offense in history up to that time to 14 points in the title game and a 10-point win over Oklahoma. Right? It wasn't something an Urban Meyer said post-game of the Ole Miss game. It was Tim Tebow, the leader of that team. We talk about the 17 team after their loss to Georgia. Guys like Drew Tranquil said, this ain't going to happen again. At the end of the day, it's got to come from the players. Coaches can only take it so far. They've got a game plan and they've got to do all those things. But when it comes to that culture, that DNA, they got to set the table, but there's got to be that player buy-in. And from everything I'm hearing, it sounds like the leadership of this team and the team as a whole, they're all going in the same direction. And that's a great place to be.
I think that's where you have to start and almost kind of end this conversation. I'm with you completely. Like, there's a lot of things that we're looking forward to seeing in fall camp, and we'll dive into what we're looking forward to seeing on offense and defense and giving an entire breakdown there. But if that piece of that is not there, then it's all for naught. We've spent the last 8 months talking about if they do this, if this player does this, if this unit does this, and now fall camp is a culmination of it. But what is the origin of that if they do this? You have to be able to want to, and I think that's said perfectly. The level of player leadership that's on this team is exceptional, but it has to shine in fall camp. It absolutely has to. I'm with you completely.
So, Trev, let's as we kind of finish through this part of the show, let's just talk about a couple things that we need to see and we want to hear from Notre Dame as we get into fall camp. We obviously talked about, players are focused and doing the right things. Don't lose that edge and be disciplined and hungry. I think that's a key. We just discussed it. From a coaching standpoint, Coach Freeman talked about this yesterday. We're going to practice hard. Competition needs to be there. I had a source tell me he was talking about, Aaron Henry's view of the depth chart, and he's talking about, like, I want everyone to push everyone. That was the mindset. He's like, I don't care if you're Leonard Moore, Bryante Johnson, Adon Schuler, like, everyone's going to get pushed, either by me, but even more importantly, by the guys on the depth chart. You've got all this depth. They're working hard. You hear about it at linebacker. Like, if you're a linebacker, if, hey, I don't bring it today, I got so-and-so, so-and-so, and so-and-so. If Drake Bowen, I'll use Drake as an example because we know this isn't who he is, but if Drake Bowen was like, I'm a captain, I'm going to be a captain again next year, I've made money, I'm doing good, I'm a 2-year starter, of course I'm the guy. So I'm just going to kind of hang out, go to the beach, relax, because I got my spot on lockdown, baby. Okay, well, you didn't work, and you're not the guy you need to be. But this cat back here, Matt Faramo, put in the work this offseason, and he's really talented too. So, hey, Drake, why don't you come out and hang out with me over here for a little bit, right? Like, that's the kind of thing that you need to have. Now, in this scenario, use Drake because we all know Drake's a self-starter. He doesn't need that. But I'm using that as an example that even if you're maybe not necessarily a self-starter, or you may be a great worker, but I remember listening to a story where Magic Johnson was talking about how him and Bird made each other better. And he was like, man, we were both the same way. He's like, every morning I get the paper. What did Bird do last night? Bird's like, what did Magic do last night? And Magic would talk about, like, I'd shoot 1,000. He's like, I bet you Bird shooting 1,000 free throws a day. So I'm going to shoot 1,000 free throws a day. I bet you Bird's shooting I bet you Bird's doing this. So I need to do that. And that competition, even if you are a self-starter, even if you are one of the greatest ever play, knowing that there's somebody coming after you, okay, I'm tired. I've worked hard, but you know what? Nope, not going to quit. Need to do this last rep. I think that's a big thing. And then the other thing, Trev, I want to see good competition in the trenches. I'm not going to name names because it'll just take a shot. But, like, I am excited to see the DNs get pushed this camp by the current group of tackles. I think it's going to make them so much better. I think, Francis Brew and Tion Gray and Armo Mukum having to go against Anthony Knapp every day and Sullivan Absher every day is going to make them better. And then vice versa. I want to hear about great competition in the trenches. I asked somebody the other day, jokingly, I said, how much do I have to donate to Notre Dame to be allowed to be at practice so I can watch the O-line, D-line one-on-ones? You know what I mean? It's a joke.
If they gave you a price, I'd start saving up, brother.
Yeah, I save up. And by the time I'm 97, I might have enough money to donate to be able to watch O-line, D-line one-on-ones. But I want to hear about that as well.
Well, and you listed off a bunch of different potential starters. Obviously, the offensive lineman you talked about, Anthony Knapp and Matty Augustine, and the outlook at tackle. It's not even just in the starting lineup, though, that gets me juiced. The battle in the trenches, even in the depth, is going to be exceptional this offseason. I mean, I think about Matty Augustine potentially going up against Elijah Hughes. I think about Owen Strebig doing one-on-ones against Rodney Dunham. I think of Styles Prescott and Grayson McHugh doing one-on-ones against Logan Thomas and Ebenezer Utade. I mean, it's just the level of depth in this team. You hear the stories all the time about the late, great Lou Holtz talking, and some of his former players talked about, practices were harder than games.
Oh, yeah.
Well, that's why.
Mm-hmm.
Like, it's not just because Lou Holtz was having them go through 7-hour practices every single day.
Right.
It's the level of competition they were facing in practice. A lot of times, the intensity of those practices was harder than what they were facing on Saturdays.
In 1990, Rocket Ismail was never going to play a corner better than Todd Light, and Todd Light was never going to play a receiver better than Rocket Ismail. I mean, that's just the reality of it, man. Think about what practices were like in 1993. Who won today, Aaron Taylor or Bryant Young? Who won today, Bryant Young, Jim Flanagan, or Tim Ruddy?
Yeah,
you know what I mean. It's like, that's what you want to see, man. So,
yeah.
And then the final piece, Trevor, is it would just be nice if Notre Dame finally had a fall camp with relatively good health.
Man,
I think that's about the only thing that I think could derail this season a little bit.
Agreed. I'm with you completely.
Yeah.
Brian, let's switch gears a little bit. Talk about the Notre Dame offense here in the Irish Breakdown podcast, brought to you by our friends over at FanDuel. Fall camp starts tomorrow, and thank goodness, feels good to just say out loud. It's weeks away. It's rounding the turn to third. It starts tomorrow. At this point tomorrow, we will be doing a post-practice report, and I'll be up in South Bend, as somebody pointed out in the chat, in the wooden paneled dungeon that I do my shows at from my dad's house. But I say jokingly. But Brian, I'm very excited for fall camp to start tomorrow. But it's a big, big session for the offense. This is going to be a really big fall camp for Mike Denbrock's unit because there's a lot working here. Yes, CJ Carr comes back for his second year. First time Marcus Freeman has had a returning starting quarterback during his tenure. Mike Denbrock is back for year 3. The makeup of the offensive line looks a heck of a lot different. There's a lot of things that have to get worked out between now and week 1. And then obviously there's going to be a lot of pieces of this offense that's an ongoing evaluation as the season goes on, something that we'll also talk about in this segment. But this is a huge, huge segment of the offseason for the Notre Dame offense.
It is. Look, there's a lot of talk about how for both sides of the ball could be great this year. I believe my guys at Crane and Cone had the offense and the defense ranked number 2 in there. They did a show a week or 2 ago where one show they talked about like the top 10 offenses in college football. Then they had the top 10 defenses. We will do that during fall camp. We'll have because we only get 6 practices, guys. That's it. That's all we get. So we kind of scheduled it to where a lot of our preseason preview, conference predictions, bold predictions, Notre Dame predictions, ranking the position groups, a lot of that stuff is going to be kind of done in August. And we're going to rank the top 10 offenses, top 10 defenses. And I think they had Miami 1 and Notre Dame 2 on offense, and then Oregon 1 on defense, and then Notre Dame number 2 on defense. And I could see that happening. I could see the Notre Dame offense being a top 2 to 3 offense in college football this year. But what I would say is there's more of a certainty with the defense from a what we know standpoint with that unit than there is on offense. I think on offense, it's more about they have the potential to be really good, but they're not there yet.
Sure.
And there's a lot of things that have to, like with the defense, it's like stay healthy, keep doing what you're doing, and shore up a couple things here and there. Right? Like just don't regress on defense. Just normal, you're in year 2 now, let's go do it, right? Offensively, it's more about you need this to go right. You need that. You need this person to step up. You need that person to step up. You need this person to prove something. And that's why I think when I look at the offense, Trev, is as good as it can be, this is the unit where what they get done in fall camp is going to have an even bigger say on how the season is going to go, where the defense is like, just keep doing what you're doing, continue to just improve and stay on the path that you've been on since game 4 last year. Offense, it's like there's a lot of new stuff here. Offensive line's got 5 guys coming back that have started games. One of them has started a game at the position he's going to start the game against Wisconsin, and that's a guy that's Ashton Craig, right? And so yes, we think it's going to be great, but now they got to go show it. The receiving core, lots of talent. But who's going to step up? Who's going to be that guy? Is this guy going to be healthy? Is that guy going to step up? Who's going to be the boundary? There's all these different question marks that say, man, this team has a chance to be good. But fall camp's going to be crucial to setting the foundation. Like I think with the way the schedule's set up, they don't have to be rocking and rolling by week 1 and be peak Notre Dame offense by week 1. But so there's always a level of growth throughout the season. But the foundation of fall camp has to be strong.
Yeah, one of the things that I'm looking forward to the most is our conversations will quickly shift from on paper to on the field. We talk a lot, and we've talked a lot this offseason about the margin for error that this roster has. Now I want to go see it. We've talked Notre Dame wide receiver room specifically. We've talked a lot about how, unlike other years, it's not just if this guy doesn't pan out and this guy pans out, then you're doomed. Right. Instead of receiver A or B, now you're talking about receivers E, F, and G, which is a spot that you want to be in. But now it's, okay, what do receivers E, F, G, H, I, J, down the alphabet do this fall camp? And that's what I'm excited to see the most. And it starts with the boundary receiver position. This is a major question mark. You lose Malachi Fields, who was your solidified boundary guy last year, 6'4", 223 pounds, tons of experience, tons of talent. He's now playing for the New York Giants. Now, there's a lot of talent there between Cam Williams, Micah Gilbert, and whenever Quincy Porter gets back healthy. But combined between all of them, they have what? Cam Williams has 1 career catch. Quincy Porter has 4. Micah Gilbert has what, 9 career catches to his name?
Of the receivers, only Faison and Greathouse have double-digit catches in their careers. I think Quincy Porter, Mylan Graham is 4th with 6.
Yeah. It's one of the biggest things that has to get shaped out. This boundary receiver is a big part of Mike Denbrock's offense. Now, not all hope is lost if, Quincy Porter isn't the guy that we all expect him to be and he's not 100% healthy. Bunch of different options there. Sure. But this is a crucial point because 2 of your other options as of today, what I'm expecting to see on like some formulated depth chart is the 3 guys listed in the boundary is Cam Williams, Micah Gilbert, and Quincy Porter. All 3 of them have very reasonable but very big questions that they have to answer in fall camp. It's going to be huge.
Yeah, when I look at receiver, here's the thing. I don't care about not having experience. I've said this for years. I don't care. Having experience is something that is not a prerequisite for being a big-time player. And this has been true forever. Look at Golden Tate. Comes in as a freshman, doesn't know how to run but 2 routes, and catches 6 passes for, I think it was like 130 yards as a true freshman, and comes out in year 2, has 58 catches. I think it was like for 1,080 yards and 11 touchdowns. And you look at Michael Floyd, makes an immediate impact. First catch of his career is a touchdown, has 40-some catches, 700 yards as a true freshman. You look at Will Fuller, 6 catches for 160 yards as a true freshman. And I think most of that came against Air Force. Goes out in year 2, has, 76 catches for 1,094 yards, something like that. And I think it was like 15 touchdowns in year 2. Equanimous St. Brown, 1 catch as a true freshman, 1 catch. And then goes out in year 2 and catches over like 59 passes for like 960 something yards and 9 touchdowns. Would have gone over 1,000 if he had played more games. And you talk about, sure, you got to still show me that you can produce before I can buy into it. I'm like, well, okay, that's nice. It's nice to have, but again, at Notre Dame, we have seen that a lot in the past, where veterans that people had kind of written off, or guys that hadn't really shown a whole lot in their careers, or guys that had been frustrating and have all the talent in the world. Like, is anything we're saying about Cam Williams right now any different than what we said about Kevin Austin back in 2021?
Nope.
We're talking about a guy that was going into his 4th year at Notre Dame, and he had 6 career catches. 5 as a freshman, didn't play as a sophomore, 1 catch for 18 yards and as a junior, and then breaks out with 48 catches for 888 yards and 7 touchdowns as a senior. Miles Boykin, in Miles Boykin's first 2 years at Notre Dame, he only had 6 catches for 81 yards. And again, just a lot of that was backup minutes. And then he kind of has that breakout performance in the bowl game. But prior to that bowl game in 2017, he didn't have 10 catches on the year. And the only reason he played in that bowl game is because Equanimous St. Brown got hurt and couldn't play. And then he goes out there the next year and has 59 catches for 872 yards and 8 touchdowns. That one I actually did look up. Javon McKinley, going into his 5th year, 0 catches as a freshman, 0 catches as a sophomore, 0 catches as a junior, only catches 11 passes for 268 yards and 4 touchdowns as a senior. And then as a 5th-year senior, 42 catches, 717 yards, 3 touchdowns. And if you look at Javon, he was so money in the big games that year. So I'm not saying that will happen to Cam Williams. I'm saying is you not having experience is not something that's going to keep you from being this player.
Right.
Having said that, I don't know that all of us were going into 2008 or 2015, or it could be 2014 for Will, or 2018 for Miles Gilbert, and said, "Oh, these guys are going to dominate." Because, or the ones that we did, it's because we started to see it. Why were we actually excited about Miles Boykin in 2018? Not just the LSU game, but we watched him work Julian Love all spring. Well, we didn't see that from Cam and Micah. So there's reasons to be hesitant. And I had somebody say, "Hey, listen, when I get all the excitement about this team, but I think there's some Cab, I think that's how you say his name. So I'm like, hey, you can't have him top 5 right now offensively because of these question marks. So my answer is like, you got to project a little bit, but at the same time, okay, that's fair. That's fair. I mean, you need to see it. So I think that's where it's at. Like, I'm not someone who buys into I can't get hyped because the receivers haven't proven enough. I don't care about that. There's a long history of Notre Dame receivers not doing anything and then blowing up. But we need to see someone actually do that, and there was evidence that we were going to see that in the springs going into those seasons. And so can Micah Gilbert finally, take what he can do and do it? Can Cam? Can Mylan Graham? Can Quincy Porter? Can Elijah Burris, who I hear a lot of good things about? Another guy that is having a great offseason that nobody talks about, Logan Saldate, is a guy we hear a lot about from different sources about, boy, hey, don't sleep on this kid, Bubba Frazier. But like right now it's we think, we hope. And, but it's the same story at tight end. There's loads of talent, loads of potential, but it's unproven. Who's the most proven player tight end right now, Trev? Ty Washington.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? By far.
Yeah.
Nobody else has more than 5 career catches. Running back, unproven. But where I kind of come back to it is I understand all that, but this is still a really talented position, like roster. And fortunately for Notre Dame, their lack of talent, their lack of proven production are at positions where proven production is least required to succeed. You need experience at quarterback. I think you need experience in some years under your belt on the offensive line. You don't want to go out there with a bunch of freshman offensive linemen and quarterbacks, ideally. But we've also seen teams do that. Clemson 2018. Freshman quarterback, sophomore running back, sophomore number 1 receiver, freshman number 2 receiver. But what do they have? A bunch of vets up front. And really good talent. Those guys were young, but they were really talented. And that's kind of where Notre Dame is. I'm not saying they have a T. Higgins on the roster or Justin Ross, but there's plenty of talent at running back, receiver, and tight end. So now it's about, okay, Trev, is the potential going to turn into production? That's the unknown. That's what we need to see in fall camp. Because it's not just going to flip the switch against Wisconsin. If it doesn't show up in fall camp, then you start getting a little bit nervous. Yep. I should say it's going to be tough to turn it on when we get to Wisconsin. You need to start seeing it.
Definitely not impossible, but I'm with you completely. What we learned last year from Ohio State, and this isn't a shot, this is just some of the things that we heard last year is, oh, don't worry, they'll turn it on offensively when they get into those big moments, and they just never did. I don't want to still be talking about Notre Dame's margin for error in October. Of like, I know it hasn't happened yet, but once that light bulb goes on, I'm with you. There has to be, I hesitate to use the term signs of life because it makes it sound like they're dead. And they're not. The talent in this room is exceptional. But we have to see some pulses of that in fall camp of like, okay, that's what we are expecting to see. We've spent from May, June, all through July. We've kind of been banking on like, yeah, it's unproven, but this player's talented and this player's talented and this player's talented. The margin for error of this group is such that they don't have to just rely on 3 guys to completely step up. Like you said, at wide receiver, same thing at tight end, same thing at running back. Those are a little different than wide receiver. Same for the depth of talent in the room, but there is a guy in each of those rooms, like with Aeneas Williams at running back. It's okay, who's joining him? Who is rising in the ranks to then be on that level? Is it Kedron Young's health? Is it Jonas Walton, who was brought up multiple times by Marcus Freeman, by Drake Bowen, about having a great summer and spent a lot of time in the weight room and is really growing as a player? In the tight end room from the sit down that you had with Marcus Freeman, you talked about how much he raved about Cooper Flanagan. And it's like the conversation.
And
like,
James.
Okay, and James Flanagan. It's like, who kind of raises in the ranks to be along with them? And so that's how I feel about those 2 rooms.
Trev, we might have had a little intel about Jonas Walton last week. For those that aren't on the message board, you wouldn't have had to wait for the press conference yesterday. You might have seen that if you were on the board member. But to your point, I do love hearing that. I do love when young players start getting brought up by veterans. and not specifically asked. It's one thing like, hey, Drake, what do you think of Jonas Walton? That you always like that.
Yeah, absolutely. But those three rooms will hold a lot of key to success, but it goes back to what we talked about at the start of the show. This is why it's so crucial for the offense. This is why this period of the offseason is so crucial for the offense. Because we've spent the last 3 months projecting. And I'm willing to, even as somebody that's as much of a show me guy as I am, I'm willing to project because of the level of talent. But now that has to match.
Mm-hmm.
Because I don't want to be sitting here on October 17th on October 15th before they travel out to BYU. And we're sitting here on a Thursday talk about, I know he hasn't done much, but the talent is such that if it does come on this weekend, boy, it's going to be hard to stop.
Right. Which may happen for a freshman, but you don't want that to be going on with boy, still waiting on Mylan Graham or Cam Williams or,
Yeah. Yes, absolutely. But those three position groups will definitely be fun to watch this offseason, and especially in fall camp, as will the battle for right guard. Right now, obviously, Sullivan Absher has done a tremendous job this year. People talking highly about him. Again, another great pieces in the intel piece on the boards at irishbreakdown.com. All the more reason to go and sign up. But the push that we're starting to see from Matty Augustine leaves room for debate.
Yeah. For me, I don't know that I agree with your statement. For me, I don't think it's going to be a debate about who starts if Sullivan Absher keeps doing what he's been doing. If Sullivan Absher continues to do what we saw from him late in the year, what we saw from him in the spring, I think he's the starting right guard. But if he falters at all, if he misses time, then he may lose that job at right guard. So I think in that regard, it's a battle. It's a legitimate battle, and that's why I put it in here. But it's not the same kind of battle. I think there's a lot of people. We talked about this in the magazine. You talked about this in the magazine. You had a whole segment in the magazine on the O-line preview about Sullivan Absher. And there's this thought that, well, it's just a matter of time. I think you used the word placeholder.
Yep.
Until Jagasaw or Matty Augustine beats him out. And I don't think that's the case. And my evidence is, look how he played last year. I mean, he started 5 games and gave up 2 pressures. He was on pace to give up, I think it's something like 5 pressures over the course of an entire season. Billy Schrouth had an elite pass blocking grade, and he gave up 8 pressures in 12 games the year before. So he's very good in pass pro, which is surprising. Now it's about, can you become more consistent with your assignments, things that you get when you go into year 2? Can he get a little bit more movement in the run game? I think Sullivan Absher is going to be a good football player for Notre Dame. But if he doesn't step up, if he doesn't take that step, then you start saying, okay, you got some 6'8", 310-pound physical kid in the sophomore class that's ready to push him. And that goes back to the competition thing. That's the one position where the starter's not certain based on health. Obviously, Ashton Craig's got to get healthy, or he's not. But we know who the left tackle is going to be. We know who the left guard's going to be. We know who the center's going to be if he's healthy. We know who the right tackle's going to be. But that right guard battle is going to be good because, and it's something that helps me feel good about the line, because if Sullivan Absher's a starter, it means he played really well. If he's not the starter, it means somebody beat him out. Either way, it's a good thing for Notre Dame. But I actually think, and I know you do as well, Trev, we think that Sullivan Absher is going to be a really good player for Notre Dame this year. Real steady, real solid. And I'll give you guys a little intel piece, little snippet from the intel. One source that I talked to on the offensive side had mentioned that I had mentioned to him, I said, how do you think him moving back to the right side is going to affect him? Because I thought he has always looked better on the right side, playing right-handed. We've talked about this on the show, right-handed versus left-handed. Some guys do it naturally. Some guys, it's a little tougher. And this source mentioned when he looks a lot quicker on the right side this year than he did last year. He just looks more comfortable playing right-handed. And I think we saw that in the spring. And I think that's going to factor into it as well. But either way, either he does it or somebody outplays him. Either way, I think right guard's going to end up being a pretty good spot for Notre Dame this year. And it needs to be, because it was pretty good for him last year with Gerby Lambert.
Yeah.
And so if you let's say Gerby's an upgrade over Emil Wagner right tackle. Well, that's not as great if you're going back at right guard. You're taking a step back at right guard. then it balances that out. You want the right guard to step in and say, hey, I may not have the dominant snaps that Gerby had, but I'm going to be way more steady than what a redshirt freshman was last year. And that's what you're hoping to get out of position. And that's what I think Sullivan Absher is going to bring to the table. He needs to be a steady presence at right guard, and I think he's going to be that. But he's got to go show that. This is that final stretch for Sullivan to say, hey, y'all can write me off all you want, but this is my spot. And let me go show you why.
One of the premier position battles that will get a lot of attention this offseason, understandably so because it's at a premier position, is the battle for backup quarterback, which now has three players contending for that spot. You get Blake Hebert, and then obviously the two true freshmen in Noah Grubbs and Teddy Girard. And this is one where I appreciated a lot of Freeman's comments on it yesterday because he was asked about it and Teddy Girard's presence. And he went on to say, it's like, look, we have to name a backup going into the Wisconsin game. But just because you're named the backup number 2 quarterback in week 1 does not mean that you're going to be the backup for week 6. This is going to be an ongoing evaluation, and that's something that we assumed as well and something that we've talked about this offseason, that just because you're the number 2 quarterback going into the Wisconsin game does not mean you're going to be the number 2 quarterback for BYU. And that also doesn't mean, even further down the road, that you are the projected heir apparent to CJ Carr either. So this is a loaded position battle. I'm very excited to see it. It's going to be our first chance to see Teddy Girard. And we also get to see what Noah Grubbs and Blake Hebert do to build off of their spring, because I think they both ended spring on a really high note as well. This will be a fun one.
Yeah, I loved his transparency, but also I don't think that statement was meant for us. I think that statement was meant for the quarterbacks. In that, hey, Noah or Teddy or Blake, don't be discouraged by where you are on day 1 of fall camp. Don't be discouraged by where you are on day 25 of fall camp when we have to put out a 2 deep for the Wisconsin game. Keep working. If you're down on scout team, keep working. And I think what we'll see based on some comments he made yesterday and then comments he made to the media when we had our sit down with him, I think you're going to see a rotation at quarterback for scout team. I think there's going to be weeks you see Blake Hebert down there. I think there's going to be weeks you see Teddy Girard down there, weeks you know Grubbs. And honestly, it would not shock me if Blake Hebert's the scout team quarterback in weeks 1 and 2.
Just because of the quarterbacks that they're facing. Yeah.
There's no way Teddy Girard and Noah Grubbs can give you a Colton Joseph and Jakari Brown look. Just the closest thing you have, and you don't have Anthony Rizak anymore to be that guy. It would not shock me if Blake Hebert, and they may, hey, Blake, you're our number 2, but we need you at least on Tuesday or maybe Wednesday to go down there and do that and give that. Like maybe there's a day where they're focusing more on the run game or something like that, and maybe you give them that kind of look. Or that could be something that we'll see potentially. So It may not always be, hey, this guy's running scout team because he's 4th. It may be this guy's running scout team because he gives us the best look to prepare for the quarterback we're going to face on Saturday. And so I think it was also meant to say, hey, Noah, Teddy, if you guys aren't the backup by week 4, keep plugging. Because he said, like, who's the backup in week 1 may not be the backup. What did he say, like week 6?
Week 6, yes, sir.
Something like that. And then as we saw in 24 to 25, a guy may be the backup all year. Doesn't mean he's going to start next year. I mean, Notre Dame's 4th string quarterback in 2024 became their first string quarterback in 2025. So I think those are the things that I think it was meant for them. Don't be discouraged by where you are right now. Keep working. And I thought that was wise of him. I was glad he said it that way because I'm just sitting there listening like, he's not saying that for us. Which is what a smart head coach does. You're saying things through the media that you want your players to read and hear, because it's like, hey, I'm not just saying this to you in my office. That's just coach speak. I'm saying this to everybody. This is where we're at. And so it's going to be a big storyline, and hopefully it's an irrelevant storyline in 2026. Hopefully.
It is the one of 2 positions that I do not want to see the backup out of necessity. That is one of 2. The other one's boundary corner. out of necessity. I would love nothing more for Notre Dame to be up 42-0 at halftime at Rice, and then we see all three of the quarterbacks, but like very like 2019 New Mexico State, as we got to see like Phil Dracovic and Brendan Clark and all that. So I think that'd be fantastic. Out of necessity, I'm with you completely. But
Yes.
I am excited to see, obviously, two former quarterbacks here. I like being able to watch the kids go out and spin it. You know what I mean? And it's our first opportunity to see Teddy Girard too. So I'm pretty geeked to see it.
I hope we don't get to see them on Saturdays until it's like third quarter, fourth quarter, and it's because they're got a 4 or 5 touchdown lead. I hope.
Yeah, and CJ Carr's chilling on the sideline with a hat on.
Hope we never have to see them play a meaningful down of. Yeah, CJ's over there signaling. So he's not in the injury tent. You know what I mean? Like, absolutely. And again, it's going to be a big storyline, but it's not one that I hope that we. I hope Gino Guidugli's ability to build up a number 2 quarterback is not tested until 2027. Heck, maybe 2028. I mean, who knows?
Hey,
you
man.
know what I mean? Like, so there's some draft experts that are talking about CJ Carr needing to come back in 2028, which based on their evaluation of where he is now and what we've seen on film, I understand that completely. I just don't think that's going to be the storyline by the time we get done with the 2026 season, but we'll see.
Yeah.
We'll see. But yeah, I just hope that's not a that's not something we have to worry about in 2026.
Agreed.
Yeah.
Agreed. Brian, there's some other things here on the offense that we wanted to talk about as well as we kind of wrap up this segment. And there's some, not superlatives, but there are some pieces of this offense that we wanted to dive into. One of them is the position group that we're the most confident in, or the position that we're the most confident in heading into fall camp. And this is one that's interesting. This is going to be a very interesting conversation for the defensive side of the ball. But for offense, where are you with that?
All of the above. That's kind of the answer on defense. What position group are you most excited about? Yeah. Like, no, Brian, I don't think you're understanding my question. Which of the 3 position groups are you most excited about? Yes. You don't understand. I get your question. Offensively, it's a different deal. I'm going to surprise you a little bit because when I think of this question, I think of position group as a whole, top to bottom. What are we most confident in? Well, based on the conversation we just had about the number 2 quarterback, it's not quarterback for me. The position I'm most confident in this season is honestly offensive line, which is going to surprise some people. I love your reaction, right? The guy that knows me better than anybody, like in the chat or whatever, is like, oh, wow. And here's why. I think Joe Rudolph is a solid offensive line coach. I've said this. I don't think he's an elite offensive line coach. He hasn't shown that yet. Maybe he shows that this year, but he's been a solid offensive line coach. But if he's a solid offensive line coach again in 2026, he's working with an elite roster. And that gives me a lot of confidence. And this is a position group where I really like the depth. If Ashton Craig gets hurt again, you can go to Joe Otting and win football games. I mean, they were undefeated with Joe in there, and they had, I think, 2 of their I think they only had 3. Did they have 3 300-yard performances last year, Trev, or did they only have 2?
I think.
Let me go look real quick. I thought they had 3 because I thought they had one against Purdue. No, only 254. So, yes, they had 2 300-yard performances last year. They had 3 performances of over 250 yards rushing. 2 of those 3 were Joe Otting in the starting lineup. USC and Syracuse. Yeah. Now, again, Syracuse isn't very good, but I also would like to point out that even though Syracuse wasn't very good, the Notre Dame rushed for 329 yards. The next highest amount of yards against them was 246. Yes, Notre Dame, wasn't great, but let's not forget that the week before, the game before Notre Dame played them, they played Miami, who rushed for 123 yards and 3.8 yards per carry. The very next game for Syracuse, Notre Dame went for 329 and averaged 13.7 yards per carry. The backup quarterback and the lacrosse player quarterback had nothing to do with the fact that Jeremiah Love and Jadarian Price had 250-plus yard touchdowns within the first 4 carries of the game.
Yeah.
That was the offensive line destroying that team. And then there was some quit there as well. But from Syracuse, not Notre Dame, obviously. But, and Joe was part of that. They weren't doing that in spite of Joe Otting. I'm not saying Joe was the driver of it, but I'm saying they weren't doing it like, man, he sucked, but everybody else was good. So they you know what I mean? Like, right. Joe played his role. And that was year 1 as a, halftime starter. Now he's going to be better than he was a year ago. So I love the depth. I love the talent. You've got 2 future first-round draft pick talent on offensive tackle. You've got a day 1, day 2 draft pick talent at guard. You've got a very steady play. I mean, there's years recently where Sullivan Absher's going into a season as your second best offensive line. Could you imagine having a guy like Sullivan Absher at guard in 2021? Would have helped that team out quite a bit.
Yeah.
Quite a bit. And so that's your 5? You know what I mean? Like, it's a pretty good place to be. I mean, one of the best run blocking performances they had all season last year was what they did to Pitt. And that was, I would argue, Sullivan Absher's best game in the run game.
Yeah, absolutely.
And so I look at it and say the depth, the proven experience, just the God-given talent, the size, what they're going against this season, I think this is the group that I'm most confident in. And here's the thing, Joe Rudolph is not a bad coach. Is he elite coach? He hasn't shown that yet. He's an elite recruiter. There's no doubt about that. But my thing is, if you have elite talent and a good coach, you're going to have a great offensive line. You should have a great offensive line. And for the first time in Marcus Freeman's now 5th year, we actually can look at the line and say he's got the right guys at the right spots. This is the first time I've said this is what the starting lineup should be, is the one he is going to roll with.
Yep.
And if it's not Sullivan Absher, it's not because freaking Rudolph didn't like Absher and didn't give him a chance to start, because I think he really liked Sully. That's why he moved him over to right guard and didn't just slide somebody else in there. Right. It's because somebody just outplayed him and left the staff with no choice, which either way, I think you're in a great spot there. And that's why I have guard offensive line as my, even with the question marks about Ashton Craig at injury standpoint, because again, you can win a lot of football games. Like, there's not a single team on the schedule outside of maybe Miami where you say not having Ashton Craig could be a detriment to you. But how will Joe Otting be by then, when he will then have 6, 7, 8? He'll then have 14 starts under his belt by the time they get to the Miami game. Let's just say something happens to Ashton in fall camp. You know what I mean? And so that's why you're like, okay, this group can throw it. What about you, Trev? What's the position group that you're most confident in?
Yeah, I share the same sentiment with you. I evaluated the rooms from top to bottom, and even though CJ Carr is a favorite on FanDuel to win the Heisman, and he's one of the most talked about preseason signal callers, I also did not go with quarterback. I'm actually going with running back in this one, and some of this just comes from the proven track record of what Notre Dame has been able to produce over the better half of a decade. I understand a lot of the counterpoints. Jaywan Sider is walking into a year where, he doesn't have Jeremiah Love, Jadarian Price. I get that, but we've seen Notre Dame running backs produce, whether it's Lance Taylor, Tony Alford, Dylan McCullough, and now Jaywan Sider. So that I'm not concerned about. And a lot of that also feeds into what you just got done talking about with the offensive line. It's like, look, I think whoever steps in at running back is going to be able to produce. Yeah. The one thing that's tough about that is they don't have that one guy. I can look at the offensive line and say, yeah, Anthony Knapp's going to be the left guard. I can look at the offensive line and say, yeah, Gerby Lambert's going to be the right tackle. As of today, Aeneas Williams is going to be that guy, the number one guy. And then it's who else kind of rises to the occasion. But injuries are a part of the game. And if something happens to him, I have full confidence, whether it's Kedron Young, Nolan James Jr., Jonas Walton, or Javian Osborne, for them to go in and produce. So I have a lot of confidence in this Notre Dame running back room. You brought up an amazing point in the magazine, and you've been talking about it over the course of the offseason, that, look, I know you lose 2 first-round generational type talents at running back with Jeremiah Love, Jadarian Price leaving. But I don't think that the run game is in a position to take a step back. And that's why the running back room for me is I'm most confident in.
Well, I love that point, Trev. I just want to point to this. This is the position also to back up your point where experience means the least on any position in football, in my opinion. And, we've seen this time and time again at Notre Dame. Time and time again. I mean, let's pull up some stats here, and just to give you guys some data about why we're saying what we're saying. Kyron Williams in 2019 as a true freshman carried the ball 4 times for 26 yards, caught 1 pass for 3 yards, and the only thing people remember about his freshman year was dropping a swing pass against Georgia.
Yeah.
And he goes out the next year, first year as a starter, no experience, rushes for 1,125 yards, 13 touchdowns, catches 35 passes for 313 yards, ends the season with 1,438 yards from scrimmage with 14 touchdowns. going from one year to the next. And so, okay, but that's an isolated situation. I'm not done yet. I'd like to point out that in 2021, Logan Diggs rushed for 230 yards on 52 carries, had 8 catches for 56 yards and only 4 touchdowns. So that's 286 total yards of offense. The next year he goes out, rushes for 822 yards and 4 touchdowns, catches 10 passes for 211 yards, ends with 1,033 total yards of offense, averages more yards per touch than what Kyron Williams did in 2021 or 2020, and has 6 total touchdowns, while splitting the backfield with a guy named Audric Estime, who in 2021 had 7 carries for 60 yards, no catches, and then broke out the next year, ran for 920 yards, 11 touchdowns, had 9 catches for 135 yards, finished with 1,055 yards, 12 touchdowns, 6.4 yards per touch. 0 experience. He had 7 carries. I think they all came against Navy and Georgia Tech. Georgia Tech. One of those two late in the year. I think it might have been Georgia Tech. They were smoking Georgia Tech. It was like 55-0. Actually, that's gonna bother me. I'm gonna look that up. But the point is, it's just a position where, I mean, look what Josh Adams did coming off the bench in 2015. I mean, first touch of Josh Adams' career against Texas goes for a touchdown on a jet sweep. You remember that? And then he doesn't play a whole lot. You know, he gets for 100 yards against UMass against their backups. And then he carries the ball once against USC, goes for 26 yards, doesn't touch the ball again the rest of the game. And it's like, okay, you know, he's going to be really good in the future once CJ leaves for the NFL. When CJ got hurt against Pitt, Josh comes off the bench, rushes for 100 yards, and within 5 weeks, he set the freshman rushing record at Notre Dame. You know, and so it's just not a position where experience matters a whole lot. You know what does? Talent.
Yep.
And you know what every single player on the roster has? And I'm going to just go in order of age and experience. Aeneas Williams, Keidron Young, Nolan James Jr., Jonas Walton, and Javian Osborne. You know what they all have? Talent. Legit talent.
By the boatload.
And to your point, Trev, that's why I'm not worried about running back either. I like that. But the only reason I went with one over the other is I've at least seen more of the linemen play under the bright lights.
Sure.
And that's the only thing you don't know about a kid of what he's going to do is how they're going to handle the pressure of having to replace what they did. Are they going to try to do too much, fumble the ball, things like that? That's what kind of separates it a little bit for me.
What made it hard for me to choose running back is the level of injuries that they're entering fall camp with. Like Aeneas was limited in the spring. Keidron's coming back. Javian Osborne we didn't get to see in the spring. But if they all remain healthy, I'm with you. But that was definitely a factor as well. I'm with you there.
I will say this too. This is actually the healthiest this room has been. And like since this group, not since, I mean, Jeremiah and Jadarian were both healthy last year. What I mean is this group of 5, this is the healthiest they've been. Aeneas entered fall camp last year with a big old brace on his elbow. And Keidron obviously got hurt week 1 of fall camp. Javian Osborne spent the last 2 years of high school dealing with that wrist injury that Notre Dame said, hey, we got to get this cleaned up. Yes, he's going to miss spring, but we got to get this cleaned up. And just as a unit, I mean, they're all healthy now. And I can't wait to see what they're going to do. It's going to be a lot of fun. But it's a loaded room. And guess what, Trev? It's going to be just as loaded next year, if not more loaded, when Lathan Wissington and Isaiah Rogers show up. So
that train has no signs of slowing down.
Yeah.
Not a one.
No, sir, it does not.
Let's talk flip side of the coin. What is the position that needs to make the biggest improvement in fall camp for you?
Wide receiver. That's the one for me. I actually don't know that the tight ends have to do a whole lot. We watched Notre Dame be a pretty great offense in 2017 with a top tight end caught 9 passes, Durham Smythe. He was clutch, though. You could probably name all of them in 2017, and they were all clutch. I mean, just the third down grab against Michigan State where he jumps up in the air on a seam route, comes down, gets hit in the head. The corner route against NC State that set up a touchdown. Like, I mean, you could kind of go through and be like, yeah, that was a money play. That was a money play. But he only caught 9 balls for like 150 yards that year, right? We watched the 2015 offense be elite, and Alize Mack is your leading receiver with 13 catches that year, tight end. It's nice, but they don't have to necessarily be great pass catchers. I'm very confident they're going to block and be dominant in the run game by what we've seen. because of Jaden Greathouse's injury history, that's why receiver's this position for me. If Jaden Greathouse did not have any injury issues and last year didn't happen the way it happened, I'm actually not worried about wide receiver at all. Because you got two guys that have played a ton of football, two guys with over 1,000 career yards receiving. You got two guys that have had money games and money performances in money games, and I'm not worried about it. Because at the very least, these guys can ball out. Well, you don't have good enough players to win a championship. Based on what? So we've seen people say it's about you don't have guys that you can't win a championship with this receiving corps. Based on what? Does anyone think that Notre Dame lost Ohio State because of the receivers? Did you watch that game? Best player on the field for Notre Dame that day was a wide receiver that's on the current roster. Did you see who the best receiver on the field was the last time Notre Dame and Indiana played each other? The last time Indiana lost? It was the dude that wears number 6 for Notre Dame. He was the best receiver on the field that day. So they've proved, but because of Jaden's injury history, it's harder to be as bought into that. You know what I mean? And that's why it's a question mark. And that's why for me, it's the biggest question mark. Because I think receivers a lot like running back, not quite the same way. I mean, there's just a little bit more to playing receiver than there is running back, not by a ton, because running back's a more complicated position than you think in the modern offense. It used to just be like, here's your footwork for counter, here's your footwork for power, here's your footwork for dive, and here's your footwork for buck sweep. And just get him the ball and let him go, let him cook. Well, now it's like it's proper footwork. It's reading the second level more. Like when I don't know. I'm not saying Jay Wansider doesn't teach this. I don't know. But when Dylan McCullough was at Notre Dame, he taught 2-level reads. That's NFL stuff. You don't teach that to college running backs. Meaning as you're reading the first level, you're also reading the second level. And that's big time. And that's advanced stuff. Coach Sider may teach that. I just don't know. I don't know him like I knew Coach McCullough. So, pass pro it's not quite as much as receivers. What I'm saying, it's not like this position you just put some kid who can't do anything and he's going to perform. But it's not one where, as we point out, where you need a ton of experience, in my opinion. So they can do it, but then I get the intel and it's like, boy, this kid's got loads of talent, but I just need him to be more consistent. And this kid's got loads of talent, but I just need him to figure it out. There was a little too much of that at receiver for me to just be completely like, they're going to be great. And that's why this is the group that, to me, has the most approved in fall camp.
I'm also going with wide receiver here as well. I'm with you. Jaden Greathouse's injury plays a big role in that. And I honestly don't even know if I would do that if Jaden Greathouse just had a healthy spring. My hesitation comes from, this is the best he's looked in winter workouts, and then he misses the spring. And then this is the best he's looked in summer workouts. What's in store in fall camp? So that's something that I really have to see from him. But honestly, if he was healthy in the spring and I got to see a full sample size of him, I'd feel great about it.
What I've found out is that was intentional. What we saw in the spring was intentional. It was, they didn't want to take a chance of him having a setback, and Mylan Graham needed reps. That's kind of what I would, because we're like, dude, he looks fine. He's running around. He looks fine. Like, why is he not playing? Who knows if that's actually true or not, or that someone just kind of, retroactively saying this and this and this. But to your point, Trev, even if he went out in the spring and dominated in the spring, it wouldn't mean a thing to me because we didn't see it in the fall when it mattered. And so I'm with you on that. And that's why the receiving core is there for me. Now, at the same time, if the two veterans are healthy and just do what they've done, even maybe a little bit more consistently, now you just need one of like 9 guys to break out and be that guy. And that's kind of where I'm optimistic about the receiving core, but we're trying to be honest here. We're trying to be not honest. We're always honest. We're trying to be a little bit, overly critical here to not make it seem like it's all sunshine and rainbows and everybody's perfect and everybody's ready to rock and roll. There are levels to offense that have to, okay, the talent's great, but let's go see it. And so that's why you're like, look, this is kind of where we're at. I think this group is going to be good, but it's now we are completely 100% starting tomorrow in show me mode with that group. The good news is the best secondary they're going to play all season is the one they're going to go against for the next month. With all due respect to Miami, who's got the best secondary on Notre Dame's schedule, followed slightly behind by BYU. I think it's the safety group that separates it for me. think you could argue that my BYU starting cornerback room is better. Miami has better depth. Miami has better safeties. With all due respect to those two secondaries, who are, I think we had both in the top 10.
Yep.
They're not as good as Notre Dame. And anyone who read the DB Intel piece that I put out today understands that it's not just the first teamers that are a problem.
That's one thing that gives me a lot of confidence about the boundary is whoever wins that job, it's going to be earned because you're going up against Leonard Moore every day for the next 20 some odd practices. That makes me feel really, really confident.
Yeah.
Brian, when you look at this Notre Dame offense here in fall camp, what's the biggest question overall heading into fall camp for this group?
Can they put it all together? We got to see this from the tight ends. We got to see this from the O-line. We got to see this from the receivers. We got to see this from CJ Carr. Can they put it all together? And what adjustments will Coach Denbrock make to fit the personnel? Because here's the thing, Trev. We have seen Mike Denbrock now has a decade-long track record of I'm going to adapt what I do to fit my players. Yeah. The offense they ran in 24 looked nothing like the offense he ran in 23 at LSU or 25 at Notre Dame. Now, the schemes were basically the same, but how it was built was very different because why? They had to fit it around a quarterback with a unique skill set and a receiving core that didn't quite have the, experience, talent, whatever that the unit he had in 23 had, certainly. And then even the unit he had in 25 with Jordan Faison a year older and healthier and Malachi Fields. He didn't have with all due respect to Bo Collins, he wasn't quite as good as, in my opinion, as Malachi Fields. Good player, but not quite as good. So I think it's how will he adapt the talent to make it all fit together is probably my biggest question mark, other than just the one that we all have, which is can they stay healthy? That's the, but getting beyond, because that's lazy to, what's your biggest question mark? Can they stay healthy? It's sure that's a given, but what's Coach Denbrock going to be able to do in order to get everybody on the same page and get the system working well for all the position groups? That's going to be it for me.
Yeah, mine is very, very much big picture, and it's who starts to lay the foundation to replace the production that they lost, because it's a lot. I mean, don't get me wrong, and I'm kind of taking a page out of Marcus Freeman's book where they're not looking for the next Jeremiah Love. They're not looking for the next Malachi Fields. It's who do you have to replace those guys? And it'll be by committee. I don't know if they're going to have one boundary receiver that just dominates 95% of the reps in that spot. But because of the production that they lost between Love and Price and Fields and Pauling and Raritan, on offense alone, doesn't even count special teams and what JD did there. He lost 406 combined touches, 3,906 yards, and 45 touchdowns. You scored 70 as a team. And when you factor in the offensive line play between Billy Stroth and Emil Wagner, who are also gone, you lost 3,437 snaps of offense. So it's who lays that foundation. It's not who do you just step up and replace that individual player, but which group of players step up. That's what I'm starting to look for in fall camp.
I'm sorry laughing. I just saw a tweet from Brad Crawford who said, all right, I'm starting to grow tired of the easy Notre Dame schedule talk. Bro, you've been leading that until now. What are you talking about? What are you talking about? Oh, my goodness. These people kill me. Oh, goodness gracious. I just had to get a chuckle out of that.
Had to.
Yeah.
No, I get it. But yeah, that's my biggest question on offense, along with what you listed out as well. Who is the one player on offense that you're kind of looking forward to seeing, that you want to see have a fall camp breakout?
There's Jaden Greathouse, Mylan Graham, Elijah Burris, Cam Williams, Micah Gilbert, all those guys. I would love to see have a breakout, but I'm going to be honest. I'm going to cheese out and kind of – I hate when people put all this hype on freshmen. Hate it. Oh, I can't wait to see this young freshman. I know Sullivan Absher's a good player, but I can't wait to see the guy that's never played a meaningful down of football because I liked him better as a high school recruit or something like that. But I'm sorry, Ian Premer. I'm so fired up to see Ian Premer play and kind of what he can do, because I remember what this offensive staff did with Tyler Eifert, and Mike Denbrock was part of that. And you start thinking about what they can do with a guy like Ian Premer, who is even faster than Tyler was coming out of high school. That's the one that I'm going with. You could pick any receiver, and Quincy Porter, Micah Gilbert, Cam Williams, Elijah Burris, Mylan Graham, Jaden Greathouse, Devin Fitzgerald, Bubba Frazier, Logan Saldate, Caden Finley. I can name all 15 kids on scholarship, and they all are talented players, and I'd love to see them break out. But it's at the end of the day, it's like, it doesn't always have to be that. I remember this team that won a title 5 years ago, whose best player was a true freshman tight end. Won a back-to-back championships with that kid leading the pass game. So that's a lot to put on a freshman, and I'm not saying he's going to be Brock Bowers. I'm not saying that at all. I'm just saying that's why I would love it if I could pick one guy to have a huge breakout in fall camp. That's why Ian Premer would be that guy. I'll take the 6'6", 245-pound kid that's really fast and athletic and returned kicks in high school and got jet sweep, ran the ball out of the backfield, returned punts, played free safety, windmill dunks it in games, okay, I'll take that guy.
Yeah, definitely worse options to pick. I agree.
Thanks, Trev. I'm glad that there's worse options to pick.
The one that I'm going with Kedron Young. I got juiced yesterday when I saw that he's not even on the modified activity report.
Yeah.
I got absolutely juiced. So we're getting – now, will he be inserted right away into the first team? And it's like, all right, we're going to give you 15 carries on the first full day of contact and practice. I don't know if they're going to do that. Kedron Young is that guy for me that I hope that he has a fall camp breakout, because there's a lot of projection. I just said the room that I'm the most confident in is the running back room. And a big part of that is because I didn't see Kedron Young's name listed on the out for fall camp or the altered activity report for fall camp. He has a skill set unlike anybody else in that room. Everybody else in that running back room is 5'10" or shorter and 214 pounds or less. Kedron Young is 5'11", 235 pounds as of the spring. So I'm very curious to see what he looks like in fall camp. If he can even remotely pick up where he left off in the spring of 2025, this is going to be a really fun one. So
that's a good one. That's my dude too, man. Like, I was so high on him, like in high school, but he's where he is with me is he's in my Cam Williams, Micah Gilbert category for me now, where I'm just trying not to get too excited about him because I'm in show me mode. They're juniors now. I'm in show me mode. For whatever reason, his situation is different. He was playing great until the knee injury. It's just I'm in show me mode, which it's kind of like it's unfair to say, like, so you're going to be critical of them, but not the guy that's never played a snap of college football. I'm not saying that. I'm just saying, like, with them, it's like they could be that guy, but I just need to see it.
Sure,
I just need to see it.
Brian, let's talk about the defense here in the Irish Breakdown podcast, brought to you by our friends over at FanDuel. Just got done wrapping up the offensive side of the ball and previewing their outlook in fall camp. And now it's time to talk about the defense. And this is a much different conversation than what it was for the offense. There was a graphic that ESPN put out about how, Notre Dame has the most returning production of any team in college football. A lot of that is on the defensive side of the ball. You return Boubacar Traore, Jason Onye, Bryce Young, Elijah Hughes, all 5 of your linebackers, 4 starters from the secondary. A lot of that production that Notre Dame returns as a team is on the defensive side of the ball. Don't get me wrong. The offense still has CJ Carr and Knapp and Lambert and Jordan Faison, their leading receiver from last year, and receptions and yards comes back. But a lot of that production you return is on defense. You have an impact starter, at least one, returning at every level of the defense. D-line, linebacker, and in the defensive backfield. So the outlook for fall camp is a little bit different than the offense. Offense, we're talking about, loads of potential, but, there's a lot more questions. Can they put it all together? For defense, you said it earlier, it's kind of, we know a lot about the defense. So can you just build on some of the things that we saw in the final 7 games of last year and really start to enhance your play as a unit? Doesn't mean that we're not going to be paying attention to the defense and what they're going to be doing, but it's a different conversation than the offense.
Yeah, this is much more of keep doing what you're doing. A lot more knowns. There's a lot of guys in this team where it's like, dude, if you just repeat what you did last season or maybe the last 8 games of last season, like, does Leonard Moore need to get an ounce better this year? No, not really. He was the best cornerback in college football this last year, probably the best cornerback in college football this year if he just repeats what he did last year, and with the exception of not missing 2 games. You know, does Adon Shula need to get better? I mean, I'd like him to, but he's still a pretty good player if he doesn't. Same with Drake Bowen, same with Kingston, same with Jaden Ausberry, same with Boubacar Traore, same with Francis Brew, even with Tion Gray. If all Tion Gray does is just be a space eater like he did last year, that's a perfect fit for this offense. You know, or it's guys that did it in stretches. Hey, if Jason Onye can be the guy he was the last half of last year, you know, like Elijah Hughes, just do what you did last year. You know, keep balling. You know, and you look at like Christian Gray. Can he be the guy he was before his shoulder injury in 2024, or after they rested him last year and said, hey, he's just, you know, he's not able to do it mentally right now, and they set him for a couple games. He comes back and he's lights out the last 3 games, gives up 1 completion in 3 games, and ranked 5th in college football last year in passes defensed. You know, but it's more of that. Hey, man, we've seen greatness from you. Just do it more consistently. Where on offense, it's like, dude, we know you have loads of talent, but we've never seen you do anything meaningful. We need you to do something meaningful. It's a very different conversation talking about Christian Gray versus Cam Williams,
Sure,
or Christian Gray versus Micah Gilbert, or even like Jaden Sanders, even Dallas Golden. I mean, we've seen those guys, Mark Zachary. We've seen those guys. Even the young players, we've seen them step up and be really good at times. I mean, Mark Zachary struggled mightily in his first start against Purdue, and he was a lot better in his next start a week later against Arkansas. And then when he got thrust back into the lineup against BC, which had one of the 4 or 5 best receiving cores Notre Dame faced last year, he was even better than he was in the second game. So do you see that progress from week to week to week? That was good to see. Dallas Golden did the same exact thing. He just got better. The more he played, the better he got. We've seen things from them we've never seen from Micah Gilbert or Cam Williams or Mylan Graham or Quincy Porter or Kedron Young or Javian Osborne. And that's really the difference. I mean, heck, Jaden Sanders got 2 starts at Michigan last year, played, I think, like 300-400 snaps last year. It was a key part of the rotation as a true freshman. So, you know, those are things, Trev, that it's more known. Hey, we know you can be this guy. Now go be it. Now, it may just be for stretches, but there's nothing you and I are asking Bryce Young to do that we haven't seen flashes of. There's nothing we're going to ask Boubacar to do that we haven't seen flashes of. Same with Tay. Same with Christian Gray. Same with DJ McKinney. Same with Dallas Golden, Mark Zachary, Jaden Sanders. I mean, you know what I mean? Like, we've seen it. Jason Onye, Tion Gray, Francis Brew, Elijah Hughes. The only guy on defense, even Keon Keeley, like, dude, can you be the South Carolina, like Oklahoma version of yourself all the time? So, who have we not seen it from on defense? Armel Mukam. Maybe Logan Thomas. Maybe. But even then, like, Logan Thomas is on the field in the Sugar Bowl on the last drive of the game, trying to get after the quarterback.
Yeah.
So it's just such a different story with the defense than it is offense. And that's why I say there's more certainty on that side of the ball of what I think the floor is for that. I think the ceilings are equally high. I think the floor for the defense is way higher than it is for the offense.
Yep. Absolutely. There's just a much bigger sample size that we have to pull from. There's not as much projection needed. I mean, even in some of the position battles, you know, the first one that we're going to talk about is field corner. Okay, well, who wins it? Is it DJ McKinney, who is a 2-year starter at Colorado and a 1-year starter at Oklahoma State? Is it Jaden Sanders, who started 2 games last year for Michigan as a true freshman? Is it Dallas Golden, who started 3 games for Notre Dame last year? It's a much different conversation, to your point, than, okay, who wins the boundary? Is it Quincy Porter with 4 career catches? Is it Micah Gilbert with 9? Or is it Cam Williams with 1?
Right.
Career catches, not career starts.
Correct.
So
catches.
I'm with you completely.
Yeah. Yeah, for their career, the 3 boundary receivers have fewer catches than Ty Washington.
Well, yeah. Subject to change, obviously, but yeah, going into fall camp, it's definitely a huge storyline. But with field corner, it's which experienced player. Now, experience has varying degrees, because I'm also not going to sit here and try to paint the picture that because Jaden Sanders started 2 games at Michigan as a true freshman, it's the same as DJ McKinney, who has 3 years of starting experience.
Sure.
But It's all great experience nonetheless.
Yeah, so I would say this is the one position on defense where it's a legitimate battle for the starting job.
Sure.
Nickel, it's like if Christian Gray falters, then maybe Dallas Golden pushes him. I don't think D tackle matters, and we'll talk about that next, but like the starting job doesn't matter as much. It's more about you're pushing to get into the rotation. I don't think there's a battle at the end. I don't think there's like linebackers the same way. It doesn't matter who starts at will because they're both going to play a bunch. This is the one where you're not going to rotate your corners the same way you do your defensive tackles, where you're just going to rotate in the middle of a series. Like, hey, we have a five play rotation. If that rotation happens in the middle of a series, then it happens in the middle of a series. Those are all things that we look at, Trev, and say, and this is one where, like, look, I think a lot of us are penciling DJ McKinney in to start at field corner, but I don't think that's a given. I'll be shocked if tomorrow when we're at practice, number 12, Jaden Sanders isn't the first corner we see when they go to the ones in practice, because he was here in the spring. And I could see him and Mark Zachary kind of getting work with the ones and DJ McKinney being with the twos and maybe even threes at the start. And so that's something that I'm very curious to see how that battle goes. But look, you got to have some depth chart day one. Otherwise, you're going to have 50 guys run. Who wants to be first team run out there now? And a bunch of dudes are going to run out. Although I've always thought about doing something like that. Like, who wants to be on first team, run out on the field right now? And then, like, who doesn't run out there? Like you got some buddy up top, like, okay, that guy didn't run out there, but that's mind games. I don't think Notre Dame needs. I'm just kind of having some fun with it, though.
They better not pose that question. I might mess around and run out there.
I know, right? Sit down right now. No, bad boy, bad. So start talking to you like Buck. No, sit
down.
Yes, sir.
Sorry.
That'd be funny. Oh, see, Gideon's down there doing video. He runs out on the field like, "Hey, man, no, he was not talking to you. Sit." But no. In all seriousness, though, I think this is going to be a legit battle, and that's why I'm so confident in how good the cornerback position is going to be this year. Because whoever starts at field cornerback is going to have to beat out not just Jaden Sanders, DJ McKinney, Mark Zachary. One of them has to beat out the other two, but Aiden Pouncey, that's another one. Dallas Golden, potentially. Like, if they're not getting the job done, this staff will have no problem bumping Dallas Golden back out to the field cornerback position.
I was just about to say him, or Christian Gray. You know what you have at field with Christian.
That's a great point. Let's say Dallas is killing it, Christian's killing it, and the field corners are struggling. Hey, Christian, get back out there, or Dallas, get back out there. Exactly right. Mm-hmm. So I'm confident that position is going to be good, but I just don't know who it's going to be.
Right.
And that's going to be a legit question for us, Trev, as we get into this. And it's the one true battle on defense where we're going in. Now, that doesn't mean somebody might not get beat out in fall camp because somebody plays great or somebody has a bad camp. But this is the one that we can point to and say right now, this is the one where there's a battle for who starts, and it's a position where who starts way more than somewhere else. Because I would argue, Trev, there's also a conversation about who starts at D tackle, and that's the next question that the position battle we'll get into. But it doesn't matter to me who starts.
Yep.
And it may not even, the quote-unquote best two may not start because I don't know what Charlie Partridge's philosophy is. So, like, when Mike Elston was here, he would start the top two, but then after the second series, they would then rotate. So then Jerry Tillery would be on the field. I think Jerry was on the field with, Kurt Heinisch, pretty much a lot of the game. And then Jonathan Bonner would be on the field with Myron Tungavaloa-Mosa for a chunk of the game. Now, there'd be some series where we'd still see Jerry and Jonathan, but for a lot of the game, it was your 1-3 is on there with your 1-3-2 nose, and your 2-3 is on there with your one nose, as opposed to having series where you like both backups. Now when Al Golden got to Notre Dame, he just would go a wave of second teamers, and then UNLV'd go right down the field score on your second team defense. That didn't work out then. That may work out better in 2026. It may be okay to do that.
Sure.
So that's why I say it doesn't really matter who starts. It's who's in the rotation. And then what role in the rotation you have? Are you like a 70% guy and you're a 30% guy, or is it one guy's 70, another guy's 20, a third guy's 10? Or is it 40, 30, 30? Or, 35, 33, 32? Or is it 50-50, 60-40, 70-30 between two guys? And Coach Freeman had some comments on this yesterday, and I was very happy to hear him mention Armel right away with some of those, because it backed the intel that we put up on the board as well. Like, it backed up what I've been hearing about Armel. To hear Coach Freeman mention him. Again, I don't think he was prompted when he mentioned it. He was just asked about the D tackles in general, and then Armel name came up. So I think that's more of the question mark. Armel's going to play this year, but is it 10 snaps a game? Is it 20 snaps a game? Is it 30, 40? That we don't know. And that's where I think the battle lies at D tackle. And then is it 4 guys in the rotation? Is it 5? Is it 6? Does somebody like a Sean Sevillano, maybe he's not in the base down rotation, but when they get into, team goes 12 personnel, he's in there, or they get inside the 10, Sev, get out there. That's going to be a very interesting thing to see play out in fall camp. Because just because you're not in the base down rotation doesn't mean you don't have a very important role on defense. What did we see the first, now that Coach Freeman has kind of talked about him, what did we see in spring practice the first time they went goal line? We saw them go with a big personnel package.
Yep.
And who was in there? 59.
Yes, sir.
So maybe it's that. And that's why I think this D tackle rotation battle, it's not so much who starts, but who's in the rotation and what percentage of the snaps that person gets. It could be a world where the number 2 nose technically gets more because they're beginning with their 1 and 2 on the field as opposed to their 1 and 1 on the field to create a different type of, who knows? I don't know what Charlie Parcher's philosophy is on that. But that's what I'm saying. Who starts to me doesn't matter. It matters what's the rep split and who's on the field when it matters. That's what matters to me.
These are the type of position battles that I love to follow because there is no proverbial dog in the fight. I said this yesterday when we were talking about some of the bigger questions, and we posed that question that you just said, Brian, is what is the rotation? What does that look like? You could trot out with the first starting lineup, the first time the defense takes the field. It could be Onye and Mookum. It could be Mookum and Hughes. It could be Gray and Brew. It could be Brew and Onye. I could care less. But is it going to be matchup based? Is it going to be team based? Is it going to be situationally based? I would be shocked if Tion Gray doesn't start against Navy. You know what I mean? Like that would be one where it's like, okay, that one would shock me a little bit. We're not going to have to wait long. They're going to play what I believe to be a ground and pound team in Wisconsin in week 1, a game that Notre Dame is favored by 20.5 points on FanDuel right now. So I think we're going to get a good idea and a good sense of what that could look like very early on in the season. But I'm with you. It is a question in that, are they just going to ride with their 1-2 and then they get spelled by guys 3, 4, 5, and 6? Mm-hmm. Or is it, hey, on 3rd and short, we're throwing in Tion Gray and Sean Sevillano, and on 3rd and 16, we're throwing in Jason Onye and Armel Mookum? Or is it Armel Mookum and Jason Onye, just 80% of the game? Very curious to see. Also curious to see who else adds their name to the hat. That'll be fun.
I'll tell you what I hope happens. I hope that in the regular season, it's a nobody dominates the reps. Meaning nobody's getting 50, 60 snaps like we saw from Howard and Riley. I'd even be okay with that in the postseason, but it's kind of like I'm okay not going Jason Onye's playing 50 snaps against Purdue.
Yeah.
Or 45 snaps against Purdue. Go the rotation, and then the game is more competitive than it should be. Then, okay, in some of those second half moments, hey, we're going to stick with Jason here, or we're going to stick with Tion or Francis or whoever your kind of top guys are. And then if you got to ramp up that split a little bit against BYU or against Miami and SMU, then you can do that. But I would love to see a rotation where keeping guys fresh for an entire year is something that they're able to do. It's one thing you may want to do that, but if you can't be a dominant defense in a more of a split, then guess what? You have to play more. Notre Dame had to play Riley Mills as much as they played him in 2024 and 2023 because, well, especially once Jason Onye got hurt. But in 2023, there was a much bigger drop-off behind Riley Mills and who came in next. 24, there was a drop-off between Riley Mills and who came in next once Jason Onye went down. But even when he was playing, there was a big drop-off there. I don't know that that's going to be as much this year, or at least I hope that it's not as much this year because of Armel's now a senior. You've got Tion in the team. You got brought in Francis Brew. Seb's a big Son Sevillano's a junior now. He's older. Onye's back as a 6-year guy. Elijah Hughes is a senior. So, there's just more reason to be optimistic that the depth will be better and the second group, and if there's a third group that's coming in, will be able to make plays and be stout. Not like, hey, let's just hope they can hold water for 4 or 5 plays so Onye can get a breather.
Right.
Let's hope they can hold water for 4 or 5 plays because Francis needs a breather, or Francis, got dinged up or something like that. Hey, hopefully they don't bust a big run right at our 3 technique because we needed to give so-and-so a breather here. That's what you hope is going to be the case. And the more there's a split, I actually think that's a good thing. If there's like a 40-30-30 split, it's not because Jason Onye didn't do well. It's that I think it's because Charlie Partridge knows I don't have to play Jason Onye 50 snaps a game right now because I've got this kid and this kid that can help us too. So I keep those guys fresh because whether it's Jason, whether it's Armel, Tion, Francis, Elijah, Sev, I don't care, Elijah Golden, Cole Mullins. We haven't talked about Cole Mullins yet. We should have been talking about Cole Mullins. I left him out of the conversation. Whoever it is, when they go in there, they can make plays. Now, you've got to have some strategy to that as a coach because Chris Ash needs to know when Cole Mullins is going to be in there and not Tion Gray.
Right.
Because what you're going to do call-wise might be a little bit different when you've got certain guys in there. But that's stuff that you work out through the week of practice.
I feel very similar to what you said about, don't want to see Jason Onye playing 50 snaps against Purdue. I feel very similar about the defensive end position in some of the early season games, especially throughout the first 6. Ideally, we don't see a whole lot of Boubacar and Bryce in the fourth quarter against Michigan State or Purdue or North Carolina or Rice especially. So one of the other battles that's going to be working itself out is the defensive end depth. Now, a lot of names. I mentioned this in yesterday's show about how, look, it was awesome seeing Keon Keeley come back to Notre Dame, and we were very happy for the young man and that the journey kind of led him full circle back to the school that he was originally committed to in 2023. For me, now that honeymoon phase is kind of over, it's like, okay, now let's see what the football player Keon Keeley is primed up to do. And from a lot of the conversations that we've had, sounds like things are pointing in the right direction. But between Keon Keeley, we saw an exceptional spring from Rodney Dunham, everything that we hoped. Ebenezer Utade is ahead of schedule. And honestly, Dom Hulack and Joe Reif also had really good springs. And then you add Logan Thomas into the mix, who's had college football playoff experience. There's a lot of pieces. But now who else adds their name into that conversation to where there is no significant drop-off if Boubacar and Bryce are not on the field? That is going to be something I'm very interested to see in fall camp.
Yep, agree. Look, they're going to play 4 guys at least. The question is, it's kind of like we talked about. Are they playing guys to spell Boubacar and Bryce? Or are they putting guys in to go make plays as part of the rotation? That's the big question. Keon Keeley's going to play this year. But is he playing to give Boubacar or Bryce a breather? Or is he playing because they're putting him in there and when you're on the field, we expect you to be a playmaker just like Bryce? We don't expect any drop-off when you're on the field. Hey, Rodney, listen, I know you're a freshman and Boubacar is a senior, but when you're on there, we're holding you to the same standard that we hold Boubacar to because you're that good. Hey, Keon, I know that you're new to the system and you haven't played as this, that, and the other thing compared to Bryce Young, but when you're on the field, we expect you to be that guy. That's it. Hey, Logan Thomas, your role is going to be this because you're only 225 pounds or whatever, but when you're on the field, we expect you to be a playmaker. And look, I know there's a lot of rumors out there about who may or may not join the team. I don't really care to get into that speculation. We'll find out tomorrow. But if there's somebody else, hey, Joe Reif, when you're on the field, if it's 5 snaps a game, we expect you to go out there and ball out, make plays, and do your job. Or is it, hey, Joe, hold water because Boubacar needs a breather. Hold your water. Don't give up a big play. We got to get Boubacar, a couple plays off. That's not what you want to be. Now, I don't think it's going to be there, but Keon and Rodney Dunham both have a lot to prove, and Logan Thomas have a lot to prove, and Joe Reif has a lot to prove before we can say, definitively, yeah, they're going to be dudes. They're going to be ballers. Because they just haven't shown it. Keon's had a couple games, but he hasn't done it for a whole season, and Rodney Dunham's a true freshman. So that's the thing, Trev, is there's a lot more projection here, where if Jason Onye is just the guy he has been for most of the last 2 years, if Francis Brew is just what he was last year, if Tion Gray is just what he was last year, if Elijah Hughes is just what he was last year, and the only guy that takes a step up is Armel Mulcom, you got a darn good D tackle room. If all those things happen and Armel doesn't take a step up, you still have a pretty solid D tackle room that's every bit as good as the one you had last year when you had a top 10 pass defense or run defense, and you led the nation in pressures from your defensive line in the regular season. So at end, however, it's no, I need Keon, I need you to be better. Rodney, I need you to step up. You can't be a freshman. We'll let you be a freshman for the first 2 games, but once we get past Rice, you're not a freshman anymore. You know what I mean? Like,
yeah,
you don't want to put too much pressure on, but that's what the need is. And that's why this is a little bit of a question mark. So that's why I say, Trev, when you talk about position battles, who is going to force their way into the rotation? Who is going to say, hey, coach, I know Boubacar's a dude, but you don't need to play him 55 snaps because I can give you 10. And Logan can give you 10 to 12, and Rodney can give you 20 and 25. And now Bryce is down to 40, or 35. Because here's why that matters. You're in the fourth quarter of a road game at BYU, and the right tackle at BYU has been on the field for 90% of the snaps this season. And every snap that night or day, and Boubacar's, he's going into snap 65, and Boubacar's is going into snap 30. Who's going to be fresher? Look at the Miami game last year. Miami was throwing waves of D linemen at Notre Dame last year. Fourth quarter, Notre Dame's offensive linemen are dragging, and Miami's guys are getting out of their stance on the last drive like it's the first quarter. Yep. Why? Because they threw waves at Notre Dame in that game. So, fourth quarter, guess who was fresher? It wasn't Notre Dame's guys. It was Miami's. And that's kind of what we're talking about, Trev, is like that matters, dude. When your DN's going on snap 35 in the fourth quarter instead of snap 55 in the fourth quarter, that can matter, especially night games, high altitude games like BYU will be, games that are played in November and December and January. Those things absolutely matter. I'm just looking at it here real quick, Trev. Miami had 3 DNs that played at least 37 snaps. Or excuse me, hold on a second. So you had Bain played 48 snaps. Messidor played 48 snaps. Armando Blunt played 26 snaps. Marquise Lightfoot played 11 snaps. D tackle wise, you had Ahmad Moten played 37. Justin Scott played 20. He's a D tackle. Let's see here. David Blay played. You had one D tackle that played 40 snaps last year. That's it. You had no DNs get to 50 last year in the 60 snaps that Notre Dame ran, because you were throwing waves at guys. It helped keep guys fresh. And when you look at the game and you're like, okay, that's great. They were throwing waves at people, but what did they do? Well, they all got after the quarterback. You know what I mean? So that plays a big role. We saw that with Notre Dame against Georgia. How many different D linemen made plays against Georgia? Josh Burnham made an early play against Georgia. Donovan Heidish had the last sack. Junior had a fumble recovery. Junior had a big sack. RJ Oben had a big sack. Gabriel Rubio had a big. I mean, how many different D linemen for Notre Dame made big plays against Georgia in 2024? It wasn't just one guy. And that's a big part of it. But that's a big unknown right now. I think that's the biggest question mark on defense for me, as far as, like, I don't know who's going to start a field corner, but I don't care. Because whoever wins that job is going to be a dude. This is the one position on defense where I'm like, I'm not sure if this is going to be good or not. I think it can be, but they got to show me something. And that's why I think this is a big one.
Yeah, absolutely. You mentioned, who kind of forces their way into the rotation at D end. I feel very similar about safety. This is something that Vince and I talked about yesterday, and I want to pose the same question to you. Notre Dame has, as far as their safety rotation, can confidently say that Briante Johnson, Adon Schuler, and Luke Talich are going to be in the safety rotation this year. I don't think that's doesn't take a rocket scientist to figure that one out. You know what I mean?
Glad these guys put so much research into knowing what everyone on the planet already knows.
Yeah, I was about to say, don't always have to go to boards.irishbreakdown.com.
Earth-shattering news, folks. Briante Johnson, Don Schuler, and Luke Touch are all going to play at safety this year. No way.
Yeah, I know. So Brian isn't the only one with the best intel at Irish.
It's like that scene from Dumb and Dumber. We landed on the moon. No way. Yeah, I freaking love that scene. It's
like that. Yes. But the question that I posed to Vince is Notre Dame doesn't necessarily have to play a 4-man safety rotation, but they will if somebody forces the issue. And this year they have the talent that can force the issue.
Yeah.
Is that kind of how you see it as well?
They'd like to. They're hoping a fourth guy pushes the issue. And that's also in a perfect world, nobody gets hurt scenario. And that's why I think a fourth guy is a must. Because are you assuming that Briante Johnson, for the first time since his sophomore year of high school, doesn't get injured? Junior year of high school, doesn't get injured? Because he got injured as a senior in high school. He dealt with that injury as a freshman at Notre Dame, and he got hurt last year. Well, what if that happens again? Who's going to be that guy? You want to be playing I say this all the time, Trev. I don't care who it is. You want to play someone because you want to, not because you have to. And when I mean have to, I'm not referring to I have to play that kid. He's just too good not to play. Like that's the problem Brian Jean-Marie has. He's got to figure out a way to get 19 on the field, Mad Framo, because he's just too good not to play. That's not what I mean. What I'm referring to when I say because you have to, I mean because you have no choice. He has to play because I need a second safety. I need a third safety. I need, whatever the case may be. And that's kind of where they're at safety. Now, the good news is I got an intel piece that I dropped this morning on the board about the DBs. I'm quite confident that we're going to see a fourth. And I'm not going to act like it's, you got to go to the board. We all know who it is. It's Joey O'Brien. He's healthy. He's cleared. He's good to go. He also was not on the limited activity or out list yesterday. That was huge. But Joey O'Brien is going to be, I think Joey very quickly in fall camp is going to establish himself as he's got to play. Now, maybe early on it's 10 snaps a game, 12 snaps a game, and a lot of special teams. It may just be that in September, but it's going to kind of be like Briante was last year. It may not be game 1. It may not be game 2. It may not be game 3, but before long, this dude's going to be on the field. Not because you have to play him, because you have to play him. Like there's difference. Have to play him in the first tense, which is not good, is, well, we got to go to 4 and he's the best of the rest. And then there's we have to play this kid in that. Like I am not doing my job as a coach if I can't find a way to get this kid on the field. That's the mindset Brian Jean-Marie has at linebacker. If I'm worth the salary Notre Dame is playing, then I need to find a way to use Drake Bowen, Kingston Williamasa, Jaden Osbury, Jalen Steed, and Mad Framo. If I'm a coach worth what I'm getting paid. And he is. And it's the same thing for Aaron Henry and Javon Codlin, who works with the safety as well. But at the end of the day, Aaron Henry's he's the one that's making those decisions. And then, Andy Boo. It's Andy Boo, by the way. I finally found out how it's pronounced. It's Boo, B-U-H, but Boo. So I don't have to keep saying buh. Because hey, I'm just sound has sound. I don't know what it says, but that's how it's spelled. But he works with the nickels. Javon Codlin works with the safeties, and there's they're great staff members. But at the end of the day, he's still the head of all of that. But Joey O'Brien's, I think, going to be one of those kids that, very early on, you're like, yeah, he's going to play. He's going to play. A kid that I've got my eye on too, Trev, that I'm very curious to see at safety in the spring or in the fall camp, Brandon Logan. Some of the things I've heard about his testing numbers and his explosiveness athletically and some of the things he's doing this summer, I'm curious how he's going to be, because he missed most of last year with an injury and then, of course, spent the spring playing baseball. So he's basically a true freshman that wasn't an early enrollee, is essentially where he's at. Athletically, I think he could help you. But football-wise, is he going to be there to help you? Sure. I would not discount him also kind of being a factor at some point in time in some way, but I'll be shocked if Joey O'Brien does not force his way onto the field. Again, as long as he's healthy, stays healthy, I think this rotation is going to go deeper. Because let's be honest, last couple of years, they haven't gone beyond 3 very often. A little bit of Luke Touch last year, but all the production Luke had, a lot of that came late in games. He had the pick against Arkansas when the backups were in the game. You know what I mean? He wasn't always part of that rotation. At times he was, and times he wasn't. 2024, they were primarily a 3-safety rotation with the 2 starters, Don Schuler, Xavier Watts, and then Rod Hurd. I think this year it's going to be a really good 4-guy rotation, because one thing about Luke Tauch I've been told from sources is he can play, but and if they don't have a 4th, they have no problem putting Luke at either field or boundary. No problem. And I expect Luke to also get some work in the nickel and dime packages and sort of a 3-safety like Lucas White. I think we could see that. Saw that in the spring in the blue gold game. We saw Luke playing down, so I'm not giving any secrets away. Notre Dame put that on film in the spring game with him down playing the second level. So I could see that, but you're more comfortable doing that if you've got a 4th safety that can also go in there somewhere else.
Yep.
Because if you don't have a 4th safety, then your dime package is gone. Because let's just say Luke Tauch is part of your dime package as the 3rd safety. You don't have a 4th safety to go to, and Adon or Briante's on the sideline because their cleat exploded. Let's do that instead of something else. Well, hey, guess what? We can't go dime right now because we don't have a 4th safety. But now it's like, okay, Adon Schuler's shoe ripped. We got to get him a new shoe, but it's 3rd and 9. Hey, no problem. Joey, you're good. Brandon, you're good. Go do what you got to do. And that's kind of why that stuff matters, Trev. But I'm very curious to see how that shakes out.
I am as well. I also just am very excited to see 6'5" Joey O'Brien and 6'4" Luke Tauch just kind of hanging out in the back end of that defense too.
That'd be fun to see.
We're going to round out this defensive section the same way that we did on the offensive side of the ball. Talk about some of the things that we're excited to see. What is the position, that you're the most excited to see, most confident in, heading into fall camp?
Linebacker.
Yeah.
And part of that's because it's the most certain. We know who the starters are going to be. Some in rotation are going to be in some capacity. We know who the 4 or 5 are going to play. They're as healthy as they've ever been outside of Kingston. I want to go. I mean, I'm totally fine going secondary, but we still don't know how's Christian going to be at nickel and who's going to start at field. Like, there's at least some questions there. Same thing on the D line. If we're just talking starting lineups, you could make a case that it's the D line. But is Bryce going to make that year 3 jump? Who's the backups? I mean, there's a lot of those question marks. I'm confident in all 3 groups, but the one that I'm just like right now, I will probably spend the least amount of time watching in the practices we get access to because we only have limited time. I don't see myself spending a whole lot of time watching the linebackers.
No, same page over here. When you return all 5 guys, and it's
dudes.
Not like they just return like all 5. Like, they're all fine. They're all try-hard guys that know the system.
You're not returning your starting Will, who had 14 tackles the year before, which literally happened at Notre Dame a year they made the playoff. Their starting Will linebacker had 14 tackles in 11 games. You're not doing that.
No, you're bringing back all NFL caliber players in your 5-man rotation. I'm with you completely. I could spend, and I will watch them obviously a little in fall camp. I could watch them for a combined 0 minutes and 0 seconds, and I'd have the utmost confidence in that room of what we're going to see. I just would. So I'm with you there. What is the position group that you think has the most amount of work to do in fall camp?
I think that would be the secondary. This is going to maybe surprise some people. That would be the secondary because that's the one position where if you want to get real granular, you could say D end. If you can separate D end from D tackle, Trev, I'd go D end. But if I have to go with an entire group, I'll go secondary because, again, we need to see the nickel sort itself out. We need to see it's great that we're hearing great things about Christian's offseason, best offseason ever and all that, and that's awesome, and I believe it. But, again, I need to see it now. I need to see him be that consistent player now. I love what I'm hearing about Jaden Sanders and DJ McKinney and Mark Zachary, but, they still haven't shown. They haven't shown it the way that Leonard and Don and Briante have shown it. And so I expect them to be good, but there's still more I need to see it than maybe with the D-line as a whole. But if I could kind of get a little granular and separate position groups, if I may, I think D-end is because everyone needs to be better. You could have a great D-line if Boubacar just repeats what he did last year, but you want him and need him to be better. You need Bryce to make a big jump, and then there's question marks about who's going to be the depth behind them. So I'd say D-end if I can get even, little bit more micro. But if I got to go macro, I'll go with the secondary as a whole.
Yeah, that's fair. Even in the macro view, I'm still going defensive line. My rationale, they are the only, between the three, D-line, linebacker, secondary, where every player across the board has to like elevate. I mean, when I think of, no, I'm not saying that the secondary doesn't have people that don't have to, but I think about, in the secondary, you have Leonard Moore. If he's literally just who he was last year, and that was out of an unanimous All-American, they're fine. Same thing with the Don Schuler. I feel very much the same about him. At linebacker, if they are just the exact same unit that they were in 2025 and 26, then they're perfectly fine. The D line, though, the only player that I think that you could argue is like, hey, just be who you were last year is Francis Brew, somebody who hasn't played in a game for Notre Dame yet. I think everybody else needs to have some sort of level up, and that includes Boubacar, Bryce, Keon. Obviously, the true freshman will have to elevate. And then same thing with Jason Onye. I don't want to have a conversation with him anymore about be who you were the final six or the first
Although this
five.
Year, I'm okay with that. Like,
sure.
If he's just okay, but I get your point. I'm just kind of being a little bit funny since the last six is your big stretch this year. You know what I mean? But like, your point is absolutely spot on. I just busting your chops a little bit.
No, I get it.
It would work out well this year, but in theory, you don't.
This year, I'd love it. This year, I'd love it.
He sucked against Rice, but man, he killed Miami's O-line. I'll take that.
Would like a better performance against Rice, but boy, he turned it on against BYU, Miami.
I'll take that. I'll take that, baby.
Yeah, man. Yeah, it's close. But that's where I rested on with the defensive line is linebacker and secondary have individual pieces coming back with like if they just are who they are last year, that you're in a really good spot. D-line, I don't know if you could make that same argument. So that's where I rested on with that one. Brian, when you look at the biggest question about this defense heading into fall camp, where are
you? Can they be who we think they are who they are? You know what I mean? Like, that old Denny Green thing. We are who they thought they were. Well, if that's what they say about Notre Dame, it's going to be a fun year. And that's really the big question mark. Is Chris Ash going to do what I think he's going to do based on talking to sources this year defensively? Are these new coaches as good as we think they're going to be? Is this group as hungry as we think they are? Are the talented players focused on being the best they can be and the best unit they can be? And are they focused on a championship? Or are they thinking about, I need to do this so I can go to the NFL? That's a big difference in mindset. If you take one of their star players and his focus is, I need to go ball out so I can be a first-round draft pick, you're going to get a different type of play than a guy who's trying to ball out because he wants to win a championship.
Yep.
That's the difference. It's the difference between Christian Wilkins and Peter Woods.
That's a great analogy.
That's where I'm at.
The question that I had on I agree with everything that you said. Mine is more of like, I don't know, like I took like a positive spin on it because I felt like my question on offense was kind of like, if this, who steps up. Defensively, my question is how many players from the 26 class do we see in the 2 deep? Because unlike offense, I think you can see quite a bit. And I'm not posing that as like a bad question, like, oh gosh, it's a lot of young players you'd be relying on, but it's just how many, truthfully. Is Rodney Dunham going to be in the 2 deep? Can Kari Adams work his way up there? Will Joey O'Brien be on his way up there?
By the way, if you're a fan of the freshman class and Kari Adams, you've got to check out the intel piece that I put up right before the show. I was a little surprised at some of the stuff I heard about Kari Adams.
Yeah.
A little surprised.
Agreed. Definitely all the more reason.
You like that tease, Trev.
Yeah, that's good. Makes me want to go read it again, and I've already read it.
I know.
Definitely.
But your question is legit, though, Trev. There's a lot of great options. Who forces their way into the field? Yep. And if they don't, why?
Yep.
If Joey O'Brien's not the fourth safety, why? Is it because Ethan Long and Brandon Logan balled out? Or is it that Joey's not ready? If Aiden Pouncey and Kari Adams don't play, is it because they're not ready yet or somebody else balled out? Rodney Dunham doesn't play as much as you and I think. Is it because Keon looked like the Keon from Tampa Berkeley Prep? And, or is it that Rodney's not ready? if Ebenezer doesn't play a lot this year, is it because of the same thing? Is it because he's not ready, or because Logan steps up and Keon steps up? And that's kind of where I'm 100% with you. Because that impacts other things.
Yep. Final question here for you, Brian. Which player are you hoping has a fall camp breakout on the defensive side of the ball?
This is a much tougher one. I've been back and forth. I mean, I created the outline. What did I send you the text at like 3 o'clock in the morning? When 3:13 a.m. I sent you the outline for today's show. Since I was putting it together, I've been back and forth on this. And I'm going with Bryce Young. I just feel like if everybody else just repeats what they did the last 8 games of last year, but Bryce has a true breakout, this defense is elite. If everybody else just repeats what they were for the majority of last season, this defense is elite if Bryce Young breaks out. If everybody else just makes normal year 1 to year 2 in the system, junior to senior year improvement, and Bryce breaks out, this is the best defense in college football. You know what I mean? Like,
absolutely.
It just is. Yeah. That's it for me.
No, I get it completely. I came up with 2. Bryce Young was 100% one of them. The reason why I came up with 2, definitely not trying to be an overachiever. It's just I assumed I put Bryce Young, and I was like, I'm going to come up with a second one.
Just in case Brian takes my answer again.
So my second guy's Dallas Golden.
Ooh, I like that one. See, now you're trying to get on my good side. I like this. I like this version of you, Trevor.
It's Dallas Golden. And also, have I mentioned you look good today, dude? But anyways, for Dallas Golden, I truly believe that he's the catalyst in the secondary. I think he unlocks the true potential of that room. Because, look, Leonard Moore could just be a unanimous All-American again. I don't think that would surprise many people. He's going to be a finalist for the Jim Thorpe, Bronco Nagurski, yada, yada, yada. The list goes on. I think there's a certain level of play that we're going to see from Adon and Bronte Johnson. Don't think it's going to shock anybody. Dallas Golden emerging in the secondary is going to give Aaron Henry a lot of different options to the field.
Yep.
A lot.
And
either
nickel.
At field corner, at nickel corner, exactly. I think that he will give one at the bare minimum, and I'm emphasis on bare minimum. He provides expert level, extremely talented depth at both the field and the nickel. If he forces the issue and he's able to start somewhere, I mean, dude, like that just, I believe Dallas Golden could unlock a next level for the secondary.
Let's think about this about Dallas Golden. Let's say Christian Gray is everything we hope he can be. Let's start the season. What has been the thing that more than anything has held Christian Gray back?
Injuries.
Oh, it's the lack of focus. Well, but when does it always start? It starts when he gets banged up. He was a very different player coming back from the Louisville game than he was in the first several games.
Oh,
correct?
Yes, sir.
He was a very different player after because he was healthy, got hurt, and then was banged up. Last year he was banged up all year. They pulled him, sat him for a couple games. That also included, I think, a bye. There was a bye and then 2 games. So I think he sat basically for 3 weeks. Shoulder gets better, and he comes back, and he is as good as he's been all year in the last 3 games of the year. And you're like, okay. So you look at the nickel. Let's say Dallas Golden is the player that you and I think he can be this year. You're going to take reps away from Dallas Golden. Not because Christian Gray. No matter what Christian Gray does. At least that's my hope. Because it's like, hey, I don't need Christian to play 95% of the nickel snaps. I want Christian healthy when? November, December, January. So if Dallas is that guy, you can have a legit rotation there, then take some of the burden off of Christian that keeps him healthy. He's still going to play like 75% of the snaps, let's just say. But now you're taking 20% of the snaps off of his, his plate compared to when he was playing corner where he's playing 100% of the snaps or 90 to 95% of the snaps. Now he's, let's say, playing 75. He's still a dude for you, but now some of that wear and tear on him is not building all year the same way. And he might be a little fresher come postseason. So even if Christian's everything that we think he can be, Dallas Golden having that breakout, it could be big for this defense. For that reason alone, Trey, I think it's a great observation. Great observation. Yeah.
It's going to be fun to watch, man. Look, one of the things that I wanted Notre Dame to do on defense was be willing to make more adjustments in the moment. And that's something that they weren't able to do early last season. I don't know why it took until the last drive of the Texas A&M game to finally say, hey, we should put Leonard Moore and Mario Craver. I don't know why they just had him not shadow. I don't know why they just thought it was okay to keep him matched up on Ashton Bethel Roman for the duration of that game. Different conversation for a different day. But Dallas Golden would also give you the ability to, with teams like SMU and Miami on the schedule, if Christian Gray does potentially happen to struggle, whether he gets injured or what, or his shoe gets untied and he has to, in that hypothetical scenario that you brought up, maybe his cleat falls apart. You would have an option to then just insert Dallas Golden in there instead of having to move around Leonard Moore, instead of having to reconfigure your entire secondary. It gives you a 1A, 1B punch at nickel. I think it unlocks the entire potential of the secondary. So, yeah, man, it's going to be fun to watch. That's for sure.
Yep. Gonna be fun.
It is. Brian, we have a daily mailbag to take us the rest of the way here on the Irish Breakdown Podcast, brought to you by our friends over at FanDuel. This does happen to be your first mailbag. You can get your questions submitted and answered if you put MB for mailbag or a mailbox emoji prior to your submission. We would prefer questions geared towards the topics that we covered today. We talked about Notre Dame going into fall camp, expectations on offense, defense, position battles, all that. So feel free to throw in those questions. And super chats always get bumped up to the top, and I believe we have a couple in there.
We do have some super chats. Yes, we have one from NDM Moore.
Appreciate the super chat. KVA and Drake are widely regarded as two of the best linebackers in the country. Are they the best linebacker tandem ever at Notre Dame? Osbury, Sneed, Framo, and Rezac were spoiled.
Could they become that? Sure. Yeah, I mean, it's possible they could become that, but they're not there now. I don't know that with what they are right now that you could even call them a tandem because they're not on the field together a whole lot.
Agreed.
And until when I think of my childhood, Travis, this is before your time, but I think of that 1988 title team with you knew every snap Wes Pritchett and Michael Stonebreaker were going to be on the field the majority of the game. And I think Ned Bolkar played some that year too, but those were your dudes. Well, it's hard for me to compare Drake and Kingston to those two because those two were on the field together all the time. Ned Bolker, I said, would sub out and stuff like that, but they were your dudes. Well, we don't see Drake and Kingston side by side all the time, or even often at all. I hope we see more of that in some of the bigger games late in the year. But so it's really hard to call them that. I can't even say right now they're better than Drew Tranquil and Tavon Coney. Because, again, what were you going to see the majority of the game in 2018? You're going to see Drake and Tavon playing next to each other. You'd have a rotation, but they were the dominators of the rep. So it's hard to say that. Now, could they be the first, the highest drafted duo that we've seen? Sure, it's possible. Tavon went undrafted and Drew went in the third round. I could see KVA being a first or second round pick and Drake being a second or third round pick, something like that. But so could they be? Yes. Are they? Long way from that. I mean, heck, the 27 very underrated linebacker duo is, and it's really kind of a trio because they all played, but the Niles Morgan, Tavon Coney, Greer Martini group in 2017 might be the most underrated Notre Dame linebacker group ever. They were super productive that year. I think they were the top 3 leading tacklers. And then you had Drew outside at Rover. Technically, he wasn't a linebacker, but he was a linebacker. You know what I mean? But that was the top 4 tacklers on the team in 2017. Niles never got the respect for how good he was that year, in my opinion. And, Tavon had a great year that year, 116 tackles, 12.5 tackles for loss. Niles had 92 tackles, 7 tackles for loss. Drew had 85 tackles, 10.5 tackles for loss. And Greer Martini had 75 tackles and 3 tackles for loss. And Drew Tranquil had 3 pass breakups, 3 fumble recoveries. Tavon had 3 sacks. They all had at least 1 forced fumble. Greer had 2, led the defense with 2. So I want to see that group kind of – I just want them to play like that and maybe a little bit better. When I say like that, production-wise, we're three of your top four producers are linebackers. They're making a lot more plays. I want to see more plays behind the line of scrimmage. There's a chance for this group to get there. It's going to require more consistency from all of them, and it's going to require making more plays. And that's something that Drake said yesterday in response to, I asked him the question about, now that you're in, because Drake's a 3-year starter, but this is the first time he's been a starter where he's going into the same defense because, he started in year 1 in 24. Then the next year, 25, it's a new defense. Now he's actually going to where it's a defense he's familiar with. He knows what he's doing. And he talked about that, just playing. You talk about like reacting to movement. So what that means is what was difficult for Drake early and Kingston and Jaden and Jalen Sneed, all of them struggled early in the year is in the past under Al Golden, it was you've got B gap or you've got A gap, or if run is away, you've got backside A. If run is 2, you've got play side B. It was you've got this. It was very gap conscious. Chris Ash's defense is also very gap conscious, but it's less of you've got this and it's more of you've got to fit off of the D lineman. If he gets, you may say I got B, but if he gets caught in the B gap, you've got to be the one to make him right. And you then hit A gap. You've got to be the one that blows up the pulling guard on this particular play. And you've got to see that, but you've got to then your point of insertion is going to be based off of something else that's happening. It was much more of you're reacting to what's happening more than previously. It was you've got B gap or you've got A gap or you've got over the top or whatever the case may be, depending on if run was 2 or away or if the running back was 2 or away. It may be something as simple as your responsibility on a certain play may be different if the back is lined up to you or the back is lined up away, no matter what's happening. So if you've got a puller to your side and the back is from away, you're thinking this might be bouncing. But if back is to you and you've got a kick and a pull, that's an A-gap run. That's power or an A-gap counter, and you're going to react to that differently. Where under Al Golden, it was you got the B-gap. The ball's to you, B-gap. And so that's what he's referring to. Well, that's a big adjustment. And that's not what he did in high school either. Drake was a downhill fly to the football guy in high school too. That's why he was so dominant. So that was new for him. And you saw him get better and better and better at it despite playing with the labrum injury. So now that you're a senior, I want to see Drake, instead of having 4.5 tackles for us, I want to see him closer to 10. That's what I want to see from him. And if they start doing those things, then we can have this conversation. Yeah, for sure. But I'll say this is the deepest linebacker room we've seen since 1988. 2017, maybe, if you count Drew Tranquil as a linebacker, which I do. I think that's the closest we've seen because you had those 4 and then Osmar. I think this 5 is better than that 5. But at the top, it's very close to that 2017 linebacking core. And, and again, in 1988, Notre Dame had another linebacking group that was also very good. You had it dominated more by the starters, but you had guys coming off the bench that year. I think Ned Bolcar was on that group, but you had Don Grimm coming off the bench. You had Andre Jones as an outside linebacker. You had a linebacker room that was very good and very deep. And if Wes Pritchett had to come off the field, Ned Bolcar or Michael Stoneberg had to come off the field, Don Grimm or Ned Bolcar were making plays. And so those are things you look at and say, I think this group can have that kind of impact. But there's a little something that they've got to prove to me, Trev, before I'm ready to completely go there. You know what I mean? But I just like to point out, too, that, Wes Pritchett and Michael Stonebreaker were the starters on that linebacker room, but they had multiple guys from that linebacker room get drafted. Ned Bolcar got drafted. Scott Kolkowski got drafted. They had some dudes on that linebacker room back then. So I think this group can be every bit as good at that, if not better. But they've got to prove it. There's still a lot to prove there.
Yeah, as a room, it's the deepest, I would argue, of my lifetime. I don't know if I'm ever hopefully there's a day that we see 27 and 34 starting alongside, but until I see that, it's going to be hard for me to put them into contention of linebacking tandems that I've seen start next to each other. To your point, Niles Morgan and Tavon Coney and Drew Tranquil, linebacking duos like that. But
Yep.
I think the room as a whole could definitely, after the season, be in that conversation.
Yep. Thanks for the super chat, man.
From Salty, Phoenix Evans seems a versatile high-floor athlete who could play safety, nickel, and cornerback with length, short area quickness, and a willingness to tackle Notre Dame has offered. Might he be Irish?
There's a chance. I mean, we'll see. His recruitment's far from over, but I think Notre Dame's one of the top schools after him. Oklahoma's recruiting him really hard as well, so it's far from a done deal. But yes, Notre Dame is definitely in the mix there. But I agree with you. I don't view him as a safety. I view him as a nickel corner right now, but he's a talented player. Talented player. High floor is a good way of putting it.
From Fighting Irish Warrior, with the 5-for-5 rule, do you feel it gives incoming players more or less reason to reclassify?
More. Because you can come in and play for a year and maybe get on special teams and say, hey, look, I don't have to come and sit out a year. I can still play, even if it's just special teams, and I can learn and I can, be a starter on special teams. Now, like if you're a 5-star freshman and, or not a 5-star freshman, probably a bad example because those guys aren't 5-year guys. But if you're I think Luke Couch is a perfect example, look, pretend he was a top 100 recruit. Okay. And say, well, actually, no, I think the 5-star example is a good one. You say, well, look, if I go early, maybe I'm not a 3-and-done guy now. But I get that year in the system where maybe I'm the 4th linebacker and I, maybe play 10 snaps a game as part of the rotation. And then I'm getting in the game late in the game as mop-up duty, which is a lot of what Matt Faramo got last year. But I'm a starter on special teams. And then I go into my second year with that full year in the system under my belt, and I'm ready to be a starter, which in what should have been my freshman year. And then now, if I need that 4th year, then I'm still the age I would be. I'm not older. Like NFL, this guy's good, but the guy's 24 already. That's going to take into account. He's already closer to his end. So that may benefit some guys. Say, hey, look, let me get that early start because now I'm not as concerned about going in there and starting right away. I just be on the team. I can play, a little bit. I can play 7-8 games. I can, maybe be a starter on special teams. So I think it incentivizes guys to reclassify. Not that they're going to play all 5, but the fact that they can play that first year and not lose a season of eligibility. And that way, if maybe their career does take a little bit longer to take off, they're okay. And so I think it incentivizes it on top of being incentivized by NIL. So, yeah, I would say it incentivizes them.
Yep, agreed with you completely. I mean, it gets you an opportunity to get 1 year closer to learning a college system. And then it also comes down to how much self-awareness do you have. I was not somebody who would have been able to reclassify. I would not have been ready to do that. But I got to believe that most players – some get influenced by NIL and what their agents say and yada, yada, yada. But I have to imagine that for players who reclassifying is a legitimate option, yeah, I think the new 5-for-5 rule gives them a little bit more reason to do so. From Chief Raphael, which one player on offense and defense is this a make or break camp for in terms of seeing the legit playing time?
Offensively, I think it's Cam Williams. I don't know that there's a bigger make or break. It's him or Micah Gilbert for me. Yep. It's those two. If you want to go to another one and say, okay, that's an easy one, Blake Hebert. It's another one. But I don't know that I am expecting a lot from Blake this year. I think it's more about Micah or Cam. Maybe both. Would that be yours on offense, Trevor, or would you go somewhere else?
No, I would go Cam Williams, Micah Gilbert. Distant third because of the makeup of the room would be Kedron. If he's not able to get back up to speed and he starts to get passed up by one of the 2 freshmen or something.
Or if he does get up to speed and still gets passed up by one of the younger guys. That's a good one. It's a good one. Yeah. Defensively, Armel Mookum. I mean, I'm expecting Armel to play, but if the light doesn't go on for Armel now, it's not going to go on at Notre Dame. He'll be in the transfer portal next year, and he won't be coming back because he won't have a spot to come back. Like, they did not want to lose him. They wanted him back this year because they think he can be a really good player. But if the light doesn't go on and then fall camp is just kind of every other fall camp where he looks great one snap and the next snap he's in the wrong gap. Because here's why people say, well, if a guy's that talented, why can't you just put him in and play him 10 snaps a game? Because on 2 of those 10 snaps, he made completely the wrong gap. And now you've got a 3 technique and a linebacker in the B gap, and there's nobody in the A gap, and boom, here you go. And now that may not hurt you against Rice, but look at the Ohio State game. Jack Kaiser hits the wrong gap off 1 gap, gets sealed inside, Travion Henderson, boom, 70-yard run. When you play the good teams, 1 gap mistake can be the difference between a 4-yard gain and a 50-yard gain, or in that case, a 70-yard gain. Yeah. And that's why you can't take a chance with a guy. I can't trust you to just do your job. Forget making a play. I can't trust you to do your job. And I'm not speaking so much about Armel specifically. That's been an issue, but like just in general. If a guy can't do his job, I don't care how talented he is. You say, well, you can't, if a guy can't run 3 routes, and I've advocated for that, but at the same time, you have to understand, if you can't trust him to, it's one thing to run 3 or 4 routes, but if you can't trust him to know what route he's supposed to do consistently, he's running a go route when he should have been running a slant route. Well, guess what the quarterback's doing? He's kind of throwing blind to the slant because he sees the guy buzzing out and guy's not there. And so the ball sails and gets picked off by somebody, or you know what I mean? Something like that, where or here's a better example. I'll be willing to bet you $20 that this was what happened on John Mateer's pick 6 against Bama. You're throwing an out cut. And if you throw an out cut, that you're going to push out vertically, and that flat defender is going to kind of work vertically on that release, and then you've got the angle to the sideline. So he goes vertical, and you're throwing the out because the DB is in his pedal mode, and then that guy goes by him, and you throw the out, and now the DB's got nothing in front of him except him and the football. There's no route to read. He's going to jump that right. You're like, what is that quarterback thinking? Well, that wasn't on the quarterback. I'm not saying that's definitely what happened in that game, but I've seen picks like that where you're like, how could you throw that pick? You didn't have a receiver in sight. Well, he was supposed to. And say, well, the DB was still there. Yeah, the DB was only there because the guy ran the wrong route. You know what I mean? Like that's kind of what can happen sometimes. And so you say, well, that's why I don't care if he only knows 3 routes. I just need to know when he's on the field, he knows when to run those 3 routes.
Right. That's
a big thing. And so like with Armel, it's like, look, man, it's time to put it all together. There's too much depth at the position for them to put a guy on the field that if you don't know if he's going to do what you need him to do or play with the effort you need him to play with. So I think it's a big one for Armel. I think Armel's got a chance to be a really good player at Notre Dame. And I'm not nervous about this necessarily, but I also live in the real world of saying it is still projection. And if he doesn't show it now, that time's going to pass.
Yep. Armel's my answer there too. I was scrolling through mentally the roster, and he's kind of one of the only other candidates too. Like there's others that enter like a high stakes season, but there's players like a Jalen Sneed, for example, no matter what he's done after this year, you know? Mm-hmm. So it's like, that's kind of where it's at. So
yeah.
Yep. I agree with you on Armel.
Yep. There's another one about Armel. Let's go with this one.
From Salty, will Armel Mukum or Keon Keeley have more snaps against Wisconsin as a result of their fall camp performance?
Yeah, look, I expect both of them to play against Wisconsin, but they're going to have to earn it in fall camp. Yeah. If Keon gets outplayed by a couple guys, or let's just say right now the only guys they have confidence to go do their job early against Wisconsin are Bryce, Bubakar, and Rodney, or Logan, or someone else, then you may not see Keon. It's not a given Keon's going to be part of the rotation. He's got to earn it. Now, I expect him to earn it. I'm fully confident he's going to earn it, but he still needs to show it. So, yes, if they're playing against Wisconsin, it's because they had good fall camps. And the amount of snaps they get in that game will tell you how good the fall camp was. And when I mean amount of snaps, it's like if Keon plays more snaps than Bryce Young because Bryce is out at halftime because it's 35-0 at halftime, and Keon played 7 snaps in the first half and Bryce played 23, and then the second half Bryce plays 7 and Keon plays 30 because the backups are in the game more, then that doesn't tell me that Keon necessarily had a great fall camp. I'd look more at the 23-7 split. So I mean, there's that to it, but yeah, I think both will play, but I do believe that both will have to earn it in fall camp. It's not a given that either of them are going to play.
Agreed. And it also comes down to like when in the game they play. If the game plays out the way that I see it, the way that FanDuel has it playing out, because like I said before, Notre Dame is 20.5 point favorites. Some of it might not be as telling. Maybe Keon Keeley ends up playing, 15 snaps when the game is still relatively close, but then they blow him out, and by halftime, Armel Mukam is in, and he ends up playing 30 snaps compared to Keon's 15. Some of it will also depend on when they get that time as well. From Tommy Guns with a two-parter. Guys, if you were to guest offensive coordinator for a lower-level bad MAC team, first possession scripted plays that you don't know much, if anything, about, what are your 10 scripted plays? Then he followed that up with, I'm play 1, 4 verts, play 2, play action, roll out right, running back, throwback screen.
I'll kind of give you an answer, Tommy, but kind of not. It depends on, there's so much it depends on. What's my field position? Am I getting the ball at the 25? Am I getting the ball at midfield? Am I getting the ball at my own 3? Am I getting the ball the +5, because we had a turnover? There's a lot of that. Let's just say, though, it's a scenario where I can go off the script. So it's some sort of base downish type of situation. So I'm somewhere from the +40 to the -20, somewhere in there. So I'm hey, we're running our base offense. Without knowing what kind of defense are we playing? Are they a heavy blitz team? Because if they're a heavy blitz team, I want to do something early on to maybe try to catch them, being aggressive. I may do some sort of, orbit motion, action to get them going this way and come. If it's a team that sits back, I may not want to do that because their linebackers are going to sit back, read it, and blow it up. So there's a lot of things that go into what I'm going to pick. That is, I hate to be that guy, but I have to know what I'm facing defensively to have the answer to that. And by the way, he's talking about what's going on at Akron, which, if I read that correctly, might be one of the dumbest things I've ever seen in my life. But you got to do what you got to do to make money. But look, I'll say this early on. I'm a 4 verts guy. I love 4 verts. It's one of the first plays I would install. It's my first drop back play that I would install fall camp, because everything I would do as a coach is built off of 4 verts. Because one of my coaching points as a receivers coach was everything's got to look like a go off the snap. Now, there were exceptions. I don't need a crosser to look like a go. I don't need an over to necessarily look like a go, because you're releasing that way, not that way. The point is, anything that's a vertical release, a hitch, a slant, a quick out, a normal out, a deep out, a dig, a curl, a stop, a post curl, a comeback, anything like that is going to be, that's a vertical release. It's the same body language, the same you're digging that you're going to do on a go route. It drives me nuts to see receiving corps nowadays not do that, especially at the college level. Everything's got to look like a go route. And you can't, that's not going to work if you're not throwing 4 verts. You know what I mean? So I'm going to do some sort of, and if they bail, I can bang the stop routes. If they go cover 3, maybe we read the seams. If they go cover 2, maybe get the backside bend, or maybe got a cover 2 hold, depending on how they play their cover 2. There's a lot of different things off of it. So I'm going to do some sort of early 4 verts look. And I'm also a big believer in that we're going to show you our base runs early, because part of what I want to see when I'm scripting in defense is I want to see what they're going to do to our base stuff. How are they going to defend our zone? How are they going to defend? And then what I want to see out of that is, okay, I want to see this in a overload alignment. We're going to go 12 personnel with double tights. We're going to go 2 tights to a side. So we're going to go, Z receiver out here. My H and my Y are right here stacked. I want to see what they're going to do to the backside of that. What are they going to do to the open side? How are they going to handle that overload alignment call side? How are they then going to, so we show them that, and then how are they going to do the next play? Line up the same thing. And now I motion the Z across. How do they react to that? Because what I'm trying to do early is I'm trying to get a feel for, can I out leverage you? Can I outnumber you to a side based on how you line up? So for me, a lot early in the game is I'm not throwing all these crazy trick plays at you. I'm going to try to dick with you with my motions and alignments, because I want to see, I'm running inside zone, but I'm doing it off of an orbit motion. I want to see how you react to that. Here's a perfect example of when I saw it work. It was 2020. Tommy Reese did this against Georgia Tech. He put 2 running backs on the field. He put Kyron Williams in at running back, and he had Chris Tyree to the slot. I can't remember the slot or outside. but he put Chris Tyree in an orbit motion, and they ran zone away from the inside motion, and Georgia Tech didn't react to it at all, to the orbit motion. They just did not phase him. Just Chris Tyree went in motion, didn't do anything. The very next play, Tommy lined up in the same formation. They showed the same running back look, but he ran a reverse to Chris Tyree, and there was nobody backside, and Chris Tyree ran for 20-something yards. You know what I mean? Like, I want to see that. Chip Long did something in 2018? 2018, early in the game. They're running their buck sweep, and that's a buck sweep as both guards pull. So it's a pin pull. You're gonna pin down with play side blockers, and you're gonna pull with, your play side guard, backside guard, or sometimes it's center guard, sometimes it's backside guard tackle if you're running like counter. But at the snap of the ball, what USC taught their linebackers, you see guards pull, that's going to take you to the ball. Guard pull is going to take you to the ball. And guess what? In 2018, it was. So what did Chip Long do early in that game? USC's crashing hard. So what he did was he said, we're going to run buck sweep at our line, and Dexter Williams is going to go the opposite direction. So they ran buck sweep to the right, and Dexter Williams got the ball going left away from the blocking scheme. It was him and Cole Kmet and a USC DB. That's it, defender. That's it. Because their linebackers were taking themselves out of play. So he didn't, do this crazy trip. He just said, you're going to react this way, then I'm coming back with this. But if I don't show you my base run early in some kind of looks, then I'm not sure how you're going to react to it. So that's how early games were for me, is I want to feel you out for how you're going to react to how we line up, how you're going to react to 11 personnel, how you're going to react to 2x2 compared to 3x1. How do you react to full motion? How do you react to zip motion? How do you react to stack? How do you react to orbit? How do you react to our burst motion, which is basically you line up in 12 personnel and you burst outside. So my tight ends go out, my back goes out, now we're in empty. How do you line up when we come out in 11 personnel and we start off empty in the backfield? How do you react to that? And then we bring it back. How do you react to that? Those are the things early in the game that I want to see. But schematically, I want my guys doing the things they know how to do. 4 verts, your base 2 runs, things like that. I want to get that going. And then all the things I'm going to do kind of to mess with you are going to be more formational and motions and shifts, because I'm looking to find how can I get an advantage against you, leverage and with numbers. Pass game and run game. And that's what my guys in the box are looking for. Or if I was in the box, what I'm looking for. Okay, this is what they did to motion. So I give you an example from my coaching career. We're playing my alma mater in the playoffs, Trev, and we knew that and 21 personnel, when we went twin, so 2 receivers on one side, 2 backs and a tight end backside, they'd go corners over, meaning both corners go to the twins. So what we did is, we hadn't done it before, we went twins, but we put our running back, Roland Hilliard, went to the slot, our receiver, George Jones, stayed in the backfield. They went corners over. We motioned George out solo. They had to take a safety out with him. He wasn't covering George. We ran it, threw a touchdown pass to George. But we knew, okay, what are their answers? So we saw that. So we ran it again later, and they kept a corner backside. And so we motioned George out, took the safety with them, and the corner went with them. We banged backside double post. They overreacted to the motion. We came back with a backside double post, hit Nathan Davis on the backside post route for a first big play to get us first and goal and we scored a few plays later. Those are all base plays, but we messed with your head, how we motioned and how we lined up and how we used our personnel. But our guys were running stuff they've been running all year. And so they knew how to run it. And that's my philosophy when I come out early in the game. It's not trick plays. If you're super aggressive, I may hit you with a reverse. Remember when Chip Long did that with Braden Lindsey against USC early in the game, where USC was just, shocker, USC overplaying again. And he ran that kind of like fake toss, and they pitched it to Braden going backwards, and he hits a big play. Like, if you're an undisciplined, out of control team, I might hit you with that. But if I'm talking about going against a good team, I'm trying to feel you out for how you're going to react to us personnel-wise, leverage and numbers and things like that. But I want my guys getting into a rhythm, running the stuff we do. I'm going to show you 4 verts. I'm going to show you slot fade. I'm going to show you our zone. I'm going to show you our whatever our base runs are. but I'm going to do it out of some funky stuff that I think is going to allow us to get a leverage. If I know that they're going to tuck that D end inside and play a 7 technique, then I'm going to say, hey, we may have a better shot at getting this buck sweep going than if you're going to play in a 9 technique. So I may say, hey, how can we manipulate our formation to get him where he wants? When we go too tight, he's going to tuck inside. He's going to stay outside, and they're going to bring a backer up, and we don't really have numbers, but maybe we have leverage there. So then we motion that guy across. Maybe they react, and then now because of the motion, we've got some leverage. Those are things that I want to find out early in the game. They may have done this on film in the past, but how are they going to react to us? And I care more about that than necessarily trying to run some trick plays and things like that. So that's my answer to that, Trev.
I think that's fair enough. Yeah, I don't like if I were an offensive coordinator, because guys, keep in mind, I've never been a play caller. I wouldn't get gimmicky either. And a lot of it just depends on what I would see from the defense early on. To your point about what Chip Long used to do, because he would draw up some mastercraft stuff. He did that against Stanford in 2018 too. That backside wheel route touchdown to Alizé Mack. Dude, that was nasty.
Where he came from the front side and brought him all. Ian does like a half roll.
Because Ian did the half roll out, because what the safeties would do is slant hard to the play side and fly downhill. Nobody was backside to cover Alizé. Yep. It was fantastic.
Yep. Yeah, Chip. When Chip was on, he was on. Yeah. Same with Tommy. When Tommy was in the bag, man, you had no chance. South Carolina found that out. Hey, we'll spot you 2 pick sixes and still put 45 on you. You know what I mean? Like, it's like when he was getting after it, man. Oh boy, he was getting after it. Yeah. All right, let's get to some more here, Trev. We got one from Armor Dude.
Is the current roster available from Notre Dame have updated height and weights?
Pre-show, it did not. Let me go look now and see if they've updated it since we started the show. No, they have not updated it. So no, it is not. It's the same as what it was. I'm hoping they do it tonight or first thing tomorrow morning. Yeah. But as of right now, it's not. It's the same one we saw for the summer.
From J. Melvin, Brian, if this team lives up to their hype and expectations, is there anyone in the nation that can beat them?
Yes. Yeah. If Oregon and Texas and Ohio State live up to their expectations, there's a world in which they could beat Notre Dame in a great game. Yes. Yeah. It's like USC 05. If USC lived up to their expectation in 05, can someone beat them? Yeah, Texas. That's about it. But sometimes there's multiple great teams, and it's just about matchups. You know, and yeah, it's a great game, and somebody, Notre Dame played their butts off, and this team played their butts off, and that team was just better that day. Now, I think Notre Dame has the best roster, but I don't think it's so head and shoulders where it's like 19 LSU or 2022 Georgia or, 95 Nebraska, where they're just beating everybody by, 14 or more, including in the postseason.
Yeah.
I think a 63 spot on Florida in the Fiesta Bowl, 1 versus 2. I don't think that. But, yeah, there's teams that could beat them if those teams also play to their full potential, and the matchups just tend to go in that team's favor. Or maybe there's one injury that hurts Notre Dame that team's able to take advantage of, or vice versa. But I think there's a world in which if everybody maxes out, there's a couple teams that could potentially beat Notre Dame in a close game.
Yeah,
I'd put Miami in that conversation. I'd say Ohio State. I'd say Texas. I'd say Oregon could.
Yeah, I think those are the teams. It's a lot of the teams that we've consistently talked about as far as title contenders this year. I've used this analogy before, but on paper, I'm sure Alabama was feeling great about their season in 2019. I mean, you get Tua back, Najee Harris is back, your wide receiver core is Jerry Jeudy, Henry Ruggs, Jalen Waddle, Devontae Smith, your defense has Trayvon Diggs, and Pat Surtain, the second safety room has Jordan Battle, and they had 2 losses. Now you could argue that meant that they didn't live up to their expectation, but one of those losses was to that 2019 LSU team. So, from Fighting Irish Warrior, Notre Dame and USC currently have openings in their first 3 weeks in 28 and 29. You think it's possible they play sooner than 2030?
Not if Lincoln Riley's the head coach. And I don't want to spend a whole lot more time talking about that, but that would bother me very much.
Yep.
But it is what it is.
From Unbiased Notre Dame fan. I don't know if I'm the only one, but the press conference question, slate needs to be really thought on. I mean, we didn't get any injury news, no running back questions, 1 defensive question.
So disagree. There was a couple questions I'm going to shake my head, but you guys got to understand, number one, some of those questions we already got asked in the sit down we had 2 weeks ago, number one. Number two, we didn't have to ask him about running backs because he offered information about the running backs in that. He also talked about running backs in the sit down. So some of these people are saying, hey, we already wrote about this 2 weeks ago. We didn't need to ask about injuries because they handed us a sheet before the thing started and said, these are the injuries. Also, we got some injury updates. For example, why'd no one ask about Kingston? Because he already answered that question 2 weeks ago. So why ask him again? Because you got to understand, guys, we get one question and one follow-up. That's all we're allowed to ask. And so when you're handed a sheet saying, hey, here's the injury situation, and Freeman's already talked to us about all the guys on that list, what are we going to ask him about? Now, do I think we should be asking him about the barber and whether he is or isn't a voter in the coaches poll? No. But you got to understand what our purpose is there. And I say this all the time to you guys, and people like to love to sit in the chat and talk about, not our chat, but that chat, be like, why aren't you asking this? Why aren't you that? Guys, we already have that answer. We already know that answer. Or we know he's not going to give us the answer you want. So why ask him about a question that I already know he's not going to give us that answer? So I'm cool with you guys critiquing the questions we asked. That's totally fine. But we only have so many questions that we can ask. And people have things they got to write. And some questions they may say, hey, I'm going to ask Marcus Freeman this because in 2 days we get fall camp. And so you know who I'd rather ask about the running backs? Not Marcus Freeman on August 4th. I'd rather ask Mike Denbrock about it on August 6th. We do have the coordinators tomorrow. So that's part of the strategy too, is I'm going to ask about this now, big picture stuff, more about leadership and those type of things, because I'm going to get the coordinators in 2 days where I can ask Chris Ash about the battle at nickel or the battle on the D line. And I can ask Mike Denbrock about the running backs and Mike Denbrock about the boundary receiver, things like that. So what am I going to ask Mike Denbrock about if I've already gotten all my receiver answers from Marcus Freeman? And then if I ask Marcus Freeman about the boundary receiver position, guess what I've just done? I've locked Mike Denbrock into an answer on Thursday because he's not going to undermine what the head coach says. So if I want to just get Mike Denbrock's opinion, then it's better for me not to ask Marcus Freeman that question because no one's going to undermine what the head coach said. And I don't mean undermine, but like if Marcus Freeman says something, Mike Denbrock's going to be like, well, I know the coach said that we'll have to see how things get played out, but I'm just going to tell you right now, it's going to be this guy. He's not going to give us that. So I would also encourage you to say, this is, if you're not on the message board, this is why you should be on the message board, because when I talk to sources privately and their name isn't put to information, you're going to get more of a real answer. And all those things we've talked about and where things stand in that regard. So I get that people love to armchair quarterback things, and there's nothing wrong with that. We do that. We critique Marcus Freeman. We critique the players, and you guys critiquing us is no different. I have no problem with it. None. I would just say, but at least understand why certain types of questions are asked in a season. Like somebody asked, why didn't you ask about Marcus Freeman about the USC game? A, he's just going to repeat whatever the AD wants him to say. And B, that has nothing to do with the 26 football team. The decision to play Notre Dame or USC in 2030 has nothing to do with the Notre Dame football team for 2026. You're just trying to get clickbait at that point in time. And that was the thing I was probably most proud of. I think there was one question about USC asked of a Don Schuler.
Yep.
And I was like, why? He's not going to play in that game. But we didn't ask Marcus Freeman about it. And I was happy about that because that'd be a wasted question. Be as wasted question as ask him about why he's not voting in the coaches poll or the barber. But like people asked about Shields Hall. You know what? I thought those questions about Shield Hall were good questions.
Yeah.
Preseason, pre-camp, big picture, good questions, because we're going to get more of the nitty-gritty when we interview the coordinators. We're going to get Joe Rudolph in camp. We're going to get Brian Jean-Marie in camp. We're going to get Aaron Henry in camp. That's when you get to the nitty-gritty stuff, not in the big picture press conference with Marcus Freeman.
I used to be of this same assumption here because it's real easy. Like I feel like I can give a pretty decent perspective on this because in a very short amount of time, I went from the fan chair to this chair. One, it is a lot more difficult to just say, oh, just ask him this until you were in a press conference with Marcus Freeman in there. Sometimes Pete Bavach was in there, and then obviously all of Notre Dame's media staff. One.
Mm-hmm.
Two, I've come prepared with questions before, and then somebody else asks them. Most likely, and I'll use last year, this is an extreme, but most likely, if there's a quarterback competition going on and you have a question about a quarterback competition, other people will also have questions about that same thing. So some of it is too asking a follow-up question. I thought there were some people who they did a really good job asking follow-up questions. There was a reporter yesterday that asked a good follow-up question in a question that Brian asked. So it's real easy to, when you're listening to the press conference, just ask this. It's very hard to get 9 different questions answered when you only get 2. And it's very difficult.
And yes, there are dumb questions answered. Very dumb question gets answered. We didn't need, in the pre-spring, we didn't need a 5th question about the backup quarterbacks. Right? But like, for the most part, I thought yesterday was fine. When you understand what the purpose of this press conference is and the fact that we're going to save some of those specifics for coordinators in 2 days, where we're going to get a little bit more, a little bit more meat. So that's what I would say.
Sure.
Yep. And yes, if I could sneak in a 3rd question, I absolutely would, but I don't want to get in trouble.
From Charlie Weiss, last belt loop. Coach, you have been in front of big audiences across YouTube. Is there a show you have on a wish list?
Mm-mm. Like being on someone's show? Mm-mm. I haven't really thought about that. Yeah. I don't know. Is there a show you'd want me to go on, Trev? I've never really thought about that.
I guess I haven't really either.
I've never sought out going on someone's show before. I only go on shows when I'm asked to go on a show. I have a platform I can talk about Notre Dame every single day. But if somebody asks me to go on their show, I'll go on their show. If it's a big channel, great. It helps get us exposure. If it's a small channel, maybe we can give exposure to them, help them out, pump them up a little bit. My guys always talking ball asked me to come on their show next week. I'm going to do a collab with somebody that you guys, I think, will enjoy next week. So yeah, I'll go on shows if they ask, but I don't seek out that stuff. Thought of one yet?
No. Yeah. I mean, I just don't really listen to a whole lot of other college football topic shows, because in the same light that you have, like we have this platform to where if there's an opinion that I want to have voiced, we could just do it every day at 1 p.m.
That's right. That's right. Don't get me wrong. I enjoy going on other shows. No, I do, but it's just not something I seek out. Not something I'm like, oh man, if I could get on that show and whatever. It's like, I'd rather hang out with you guys. That's why I'm also not afraid to speak my mind when I go on another show. I'll do it respectfully, but sure, if me speaking my mind causes them to not want to have me back on, then so be it. I think we saw that in the playoff conversation last year. There's a show I've been on a few times that I'm never going to go back on because they're not going to ask me to come back on. You know what I mean? But, it is what it is. But I feel that I was absolutely right what I said. I was not disrespectful. I was disrespected, but I was not disrespectful. And I'm not going to get an invite back on, but that's okay. And that's what's great about doing it here, because you know who tells me what to say here? Nobody. So, yeah, we'll be here every day.
Sure will. From Carson Jackson, do you believe Elijah Burris has the contested catch ability to play W like Denbrock likes, or the speed to play it like Chris Brown did with Denbrock's previous stint?
Not so much the contested catch like Malachi Fields did, but he could certainly play it like Chris Brown with a little bit more strength. Yeah, he could do that. More of the route running stuff, the stops, the comebacks, the digs, the crossers, the stuff like that. I think he could do a very good job with that stuff. Is he a guy you're going to be just throwing one-on-one back shoulder fades like you did to Malachi or even Bo Collins 2 years ago? Not a ton, but that's okay. You can put a tight end back there to do that. You can put Jaden Greathouse backside in a 2x2 alignment and have him run a slot fade, which is exactly what they did against Penn State. They ran a backside back shoulder, but they did it to Jaden Greathouse instead of the boundary guy. So there's ways you can get to that.
Yep. From sine, cosine, tangent, in some crazy world not predicting, can Joey O'Brien crack the 2 deep, not out of necessity?
Are we talking about Joey O'Brien?
I'm assuming so. I don't know if there's
I
another
don't.
Joey
I don't
on
think
the
you
team.
need some crazy world. I just think normal. I will be shocked if Joey O'Brien's not in the 2 deep by the end of fall camp. Shocked.
Agreed. I think in this world, he
Yes.
cracks the 2 deep.
In this
Yeah.
very world, not Earth 657 or whatever from the alternate universe
Not in the
things.
multiverse, baby.
Exactly.
This one.
The multiverse so bad. Yes.
Yeah.
Yes. Yeah.
From Beefeater ND08. The moment I got over my irritation over the University of Soft Crybabies getting their way on the schedule was realizing we can end USC's season in week 1 and watch them all suffer all season.
I mean, you can tell yourself that, but that's not true. Guys, they lost 55-3 or 55-6 in week 1 of the 2016 season. And by the end of the year, also lost the next week to Utah. And I think 2 weeks later got beat by Stanford. And by the end of the year, they were ranked 8th or 9th in college football. This is the whole point. Notre Dame can beat them by 50. But if they go 10-2 and they're third place in the Big Ten, they're in the playoffs.
Yep.
That's the whole point. But if Notre Dame beats them by 40 and 49-14, which we've seen them do recently multiple times, and 48-20 like we've seen recently, then guess what? USC's out, or at least dropping way down. So no, I get it's great. You tell yourself that to feel better, but that's not reality. Nor should it be. If Notre Dame beats USC by 40 and they go 12-1 the rest of the way, okay. I mean, we watched a team not that long ago, Trev, in week 2 get beat by 2 touchdowns at home by Virginia Tech, who went 7-6. And what did that team do? They won the rest of their games and won the national championship. I'm talking about Ohio State in 2014. So if it makes you feel better to say that, awesome. I just think we should admit that that's not actually reality.
That is in the multiverse.
Yeah.
From Tom Redinger. Let's say you have 50 snaps between the 2 defensive tackle positions in the first half against Wisconsin. What's your breakdown on snaps for the first team, second team, and third team?
No idea, Tom. I honestly don't know. I would probably say ideally I'd be in a 55, 25, 20 type of thing. Maybe a 50, 30, 20 in a perfect world is what I'd like to see. But it just depends on, is my number 2 good enough to get that many of the snaps? Is my number 3 good enough to force his way into that means? It just depends. Perfect world, 50 to 55, 50 to 60 is my starter. And then split up my other, 40 to 45 between my next 2 guys. It'd be a perfect world because that means my number 2 is really a dude and is going to make plays as well. That'd be my ideal situation.
That's also a heck of a lot of snaps in the first half. If Wisconsin has 50 offensive snaps in the first half, that game is going to look crazy.
Yeah. I kind of guess I took that as like 50 between the 2. I just took that as 25 and 25. But yeah, you're right. That's 50 in the first half. I think that's
okay. He clarified. You're right. Yeah, just 25 and 25. That makes sense. But I was like 50 first half snaps.
Wisconsin is running all over Notre Dame.
I was about to say, good Lord.
Yeah. All right, let's get to a few more here, Trev, before we get out of here. We're just going to do one part on the mailbag today.
From Unbiased ND Fan, I know how much time hasn't passed, but I've noticed that CJ likes to pass to his tight ends a lot. Watching film, do we have a clear starter yet? Is the 5-star freshman Ian Premer getting any starting reps?
Well, I mean, they haven't started practice yet, so no, he's not getting any starter reps. Could he? Maybe. I think right now Cooper Flanagan is expected to be the guy. Look, I think this is the second question you've asked, Unbiased Indy Fan. Some people hate this. I don't care. This is honestly why you need to be on the message board, because we addressed this very thing with Intel a week ago, right? I expect Cooper Flanagan to be the starting tight end going into fall camp. Will he keep that? That depends on how he plays. I think James Flanagan's doing great. I think Ty Washington is kind of where he was last year, and Ian Premer's doing great. But as of right now, Ian Premer's not played a single rep with a helmet on. So I'm just not ready to kind of get to that part in time, but I am excited about what he could be. But I just want him to play. I'm not really worried about him starting. I'm not in the, he's going to be the starter. When I think of him breaking out, it's as part of the rotation. And he's just, when he's on the field, he's a legit weapon as a pass catcher kind of thing.
Yeah.
That's kind of where I'm at. All right, let's get to here we go.
From Salty, setting aside any issues pertaining to how it came about and game timing, which is your preference for 2030 and 2031? A home and home with IU or the resumption of the Notre Dame USC rivalry?
I would have rather seen Indiana. I don't really care about playing USC in week 1. I've made this very clear. I mean, you can't say setting aside about how it came to be because the timing matters. I don't care about a rivalry in week 1. It's no longer a rivalry if you're playing it in week 1. Now, so Michigan and Notre Dame used to play early. Yeah, they were neither's top rival. It's not number 1 rivalry in the series. It's like number 2 or 3. So it's not that tight. Notre Dame USC is no longer on the same level as Bama and Auburn, Ohio State, Michigan, Clemson, South Carolina, because it's now one team won't play it unless it's only on their terms. That's not a rivalry. It's not a rivalry at all. It's a convenience. And so I would much rather play Indiana early in the season in that scenario.
Yeah, I think that's fair. I think that's very fair.
Yep. All right. Just a couple more here. Here we go.
From Jay Melvin, Urban Meyer recently ranked Notre Dame as a top 5 job. He said about 20 years ago he wouldn't have ranked us in the top 10. Do you think he knew if Notre Dame got the right coach and facilities, they would be dominant?
Oh, sure. I mean, he was at Notre Dame. He understands. Honestly, that knowledge, Jay Melvin, is the only reason he even considered Notre Dame for a second when he was leaving Utah. Because he knew that Notre Dame has the potential to be a great program again. It just was never close to that when he was coaching. But yeah, I think he knew. I think he knew the power of Notre Dame because he lived it. He experienced it as a kid growing up in Ohio and obviously as a football coach at Notre Dame.
Yeah.
All right, let's end with this one from Jay Melvin.
Brian, there's been another story going around in the web on why Notre Dame is getting 5 stars. It's because Notre Dame plays a JUCO schedule every year and the elite talent wants to pad their stats. No, I'm not joking.
Jay Melvin, my advice to you would be is limit your sources. I don't believe we should only have one source. I'm a believer in having as much information as you can get, but it's got to be good information. Like I don't need to listen to people that tell me the earth is flat as much as I listen to the people that tell me the earth is not flat, because I know one side of that conversation is out of their freaking mind and talking gibberish. So no, I don't need both sides of that conversation. We can have debate about what tax policy is better because there's an argument to make. There's a back and forth. There's, example here that this has worked and this has worked over here. Which one's going to work best for us? And we can have that conversation, and 2 intelligent people can have a conversation about that. You, my friend, tend to allow yourself to consume too much stupid stuff. And I don't know where on the web you're getting this, but my response would be, if you see that on the web, whoever said that needs to be unfollowed, or whatever site it's on needs to not be visited by you ever again. That would be my best guess to you. I understand as Notre Dame fans, we all want to hear as much as possible, but sometimes it's best to just being around that person. We all have that friend. Like, I love the guy, but he's going to get me arrested. You know what I mean? Like, or I love the guy, but I always feel like when we spend an hour together, my IQ drops 5 points. He's just that crazy dude. Eventually, like, I got to stop hanging out with that guy. You know what I mean? Like, and that's what I would say with some of the things that we read on the internet. It's just best to say, you know what? You've exposed yourself. I'm going to just not listen to you anymore. So, yeah. It's just, yeah. And people will say anything, and you just got to learn to avoid it. And you may think it's funny. I don't. So I just rather not discuss it anymore. It's time to unfollow people. You put stupid in, eventually stupid's going to start coming out. Just saying.
Yeah, I think that's fair. Look, Jay Melvin, it's funny. Brian and I were talking about just the difference in like generations and like what we grew up with. And social media was a big part of like my formative years. I didn't get introduced to social media after I was in college or out of college. It was,
I was an adult. You
yeah,
know
it
what I
was,
mean? Like,
yeah, man. I mean, it was with me in elementary school, middle school, high school, college, all of that. And so the best advice that I can give you is just don't care. Do it, find whatever works for you. Like for some people, it's like, I just don't even have Twitter. I think in today's world, I think it's a necessary evil. You just, everything that you read can't be taken for granted or taken as the truth.
yeah.
It's just people will put out anything stupid, and that's
Yeah.
where it is.
Because people need to there's a dopamine hit that goes in our brains. This is just a fact that when people engage with things we say, even if what we said was outrageous, we don't care because we want the dopamine hit of the engagement. There's people like that. And that's why grifters grift, Trev. Make money, and I'd rather be known for saying something stupid than to be not known. I'm not that way. So, yeah. And yes, Indiana did drop that series. For anyone trying to say that Notre Dame dropped Indiana to play USC, that's not accurate. Indiana was going to back out of that series. Notre Dame knew it, and that's why they then used that as their catalyst to go play USC.
Yeah.
Fall camp tomorrow, baby. Our next time we're getting together, guys, is going to be tomorrow, hopefully around 1 o'clock, and we're going to have our first practice report. We will be able to see some stuff. I can't wait. Why don't you take us out of here, Trev?
Folks, another really fun show here today. Like Brian said, fall camp's tomorrow. So next time you guys see us, it'll be talking about what we saw out there on the football practice field tomorrow. Very, very, very excited. I think we are all at the point in the offseason where we kind of just need football back in our lives.
Yes, we do.
By the masses. Thankfully, we got 24 days until week 0. At this point, I am willing to consume any level of football as long as it's football. So on your way out of the show here, folks, be sure to hit that like, hit that subscribe, hit that notification bell. Be sure to share this podcast with your friends, family, anybody that you know loves Notre Dame and college football as much as you do. But as always, if you guys didn't pick up on the theme in the show, the place to be right now is the premium message boards at boards.irishbreakdown.com. And we could sit here and list off everything great about the magazine and the intel. And look, some of the daily questions that you guys might have already been answered on the premium message boards at boards.irishbreakdown.com. It's the place to be, especially with fall camp rolling around. Guys going live on IB Nation Sports Beat here around 5:05 p.m. They're also going to be talking about fall camp and some of the exciting true freshmen that we're going to be able to see tomorrow. So tune into that show as well. Until next time, that's Brian. I'm Trevor. See you back here very soon on the Irish Breakdown Podcast.